Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show, starting today at a special time. It's 11 o'clock Eastern and a big, big day for true crime and the show with the sentencing of Bryan Kohberger, which we will be bringing to you live. They are still filing into the courtroom at this moment. We expect the proceedings to get underway any second. We will cede our airtime to the proceeding once it does. And we've got our full panel of legal experts to walk you through the whole thing when it's over or when there are breaks. While I have you, I want to tell you that we've announced today our latest offering from the MK Media Podcast Network that may be of interest to all of you. It's called MK True Crime. And it'll be available starting next month on YouTube and on all podcast platforms. We will have on this platform original shows, live trial coverage, in-depth investigations, legal analysis, and more. And you're going to have all your favorites from Kelly's Court and from our legal segments that we do on the Megyn Kelly Show. Mark Garagos, Arthur Aidala, Mark Eiglarsh, Dave Ehrenberg, Phil Holloway, Ashley Merchant. That's exciting. Ashley Merchant of Fannie Willis fame, Jonna Spilbor, and more names yet to be announced. So you can subscribe now if you're interested at mktruecrime.com, mktruecrime.com, mktruecrime.com. And that way you won't miss any of those shows or the legal commentary that they'll be offering twice a week on all things legal. And I'll be over there as well. Want to get to the Kohberger sentencing now. Joining me as we await the proceedings to get underway, Howard Blum, author of When the Night Comes Falling, and Phil Holloway. He's also here with us, along with Matt Murphy, who will join me in just a minute. Guys, thanks so much for being here. So we're awaiting the start of this. We've been watching the families file in all morning, and you can only imagine what a heavy day this is for the poor family members who now already know what Bryan Kohberger's fate is going to be, but probably feel, Howard, like they owe it to their loved ones to be their voice today.
I mean, they do feel a sense of duty. This is their last public chance to share how they're feeling, to tell the world how they feel about even this plea agreement. And they're going to take advantage of it. I know I've talked with one of the family members, and they've put a lot of time and a lot of energy into crafting their statements.
Yeah. So, and one of the surprises I had this morning, sticking with you on this, Howard, is that Steve Goncalves is there, Kaylee's dad, and he had suggested earlier on he was not going to go. And I don't know whether he's planning on speaking. I think that his other daughter is going to speak, but he did show up today, and he's sort of, in a way, been the most visible family member on this thing from the start.
Well, I know his family contacted me about a week ago, and we've had some disagreements over the course of this whole thing. But now they just want to focus on the facts, and they're trying to find out, and this is extremely poignant, is that they're asking, how many times was Kaylee stabbed? They want to know that. They have a number 54, and they want to say something that's accurate, and they can't get any information from the coroner. And that's the sort of the predicament they're in, and that's what the settlement deal will keep them in, this predicament. They won't get the answers they will need, not even to basic questions, how many times was my daughter stabbed?
How can they not know that? Why is that not released from the coroner?
The coroner will not tell them that. They're calling me to try to find that out. That's how desperate they are. And your heart goes out to them. I mean, at one point, Steve Goncalves said early on, you send your daughter off to college and she comes back to you in a box. How do you live with this?
This poor man, Phil, he and the other family member, we understand Ethan Chapin's parents will not be there. They don't see any point. The mother is like the most pulled together person you've ever seen in the wake of a tragedy. I was watching her on this new documentary that just hit Amazon Prime on the Idaho 4, and she's remarkably composed. My hat goes off to her, but she was basically saying we don't see the point. I think the rest of the family members will be there and will speak, and just what a huge responsibility they must feel, right? Because it's like, the victims can't speak, and this prosecutor has failed to speak for them.
You know, Megyn, I've been very critical of how, not necessarily how the prosecution has handled their case presentation or how they've handled court, but I've been critical, and I remain critical as to how they have dealt with these families. The issue of how many times someone was stabbed, I mean, that should have been information provided to the family long ago. They should not have to be begging the coroner to get it right now, here right on the eve of sentencing. The prosecution should have shared as much as they possibly could with them previously, and certainly now that the gag order has been lifted. The family should not be treated this way. And in fact, I am of the belief that we should not have had this plea deal to take the death penalty off the table.
They're starting, so we don't want to miss that. Let's dip in.
Yep.
Mr. Hurwitz, Mr. Nye, and Ms. Allen. This is the time set for sentencing in this case. The defendant previously entered a plea of guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. In exchange, the parties stipulated to recommend a sentence consisting of, on burglary, 10 years fixed, on each of the 4 counts of first-degree murder, life fixed. The parties waived pre-sentence investigation. To my understanding, neither party submitted a sentencing memorandum or other materials for the court. The court is familiar with the file and the evidence submitted previously by the parties as it has reviewed them throughout the case and in anticipation of trial. Is there any legal cause why sentence should not be imposed at this time?
No, Your Honor.
Does the state, before impact statements and arguments, wish to present evidence today?
Your Honor, the state does not intend to present evidence in a documentary sense. We have provided the court through the clerk with photographs that we would like to use during the course of our sentencing argument.
Sure. All right.
Thank you.
But no testimony other than impact statements?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. So with that, let's start with then impact statements.
Ms. Jennings will be introducing the
And my understanding, just so I'm clear, I indicated through the trial court administrator that we need to see if any of the victims wish to have the camera not running and audio only. And my understanding is all of them indicated they are fine with the video. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
All right, very well. Go ahead, Ms. Jennings.
Your Honor, the first, and we're taking these in the order, victim impact statements in the order that the charges were listed in the indictment. The first charge being burglary. So we will have Bethany Funke's statement, and she has asked that her friend Emily Allant read that statement.
All right, any objection to that? No objection. All right, very well.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be speaking on behalf of Bethany, and so, yeah, here it reads. My name is Bethany Funke, and I was roommates with Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. I not only lost some of my best friends, but I also lost a sister. Never in a million years would I have thought that something like this would have happened to my closest friends. I thought that we were going to wake up and go upstairs, see them and tell them how they had scared us and that they were going to tease us about how we are constantly scaredy cats. I make jokes about it as we would go to Taco Bell like always. But sadly, that is not what happened and what turned out to be my worst nightmare. When I first woke up that morning, I had no idea what happened. I woke up around 7 with a terrible toothache, so I called my dad, who is a dentist, and he asked what I should do. He told me to take Advil, so I did, and I went back to sleep. I was still out of it and still didn't know what happened. If I had known, I of course would have called 911 right away. I still carry so much regret and guilt for not knowing what had happened and not calling right away, even though I understand it wouldn't have changed anything, not even if the paramedics had been right outside the door. I was so frantic that morning and scared to death, not knowing what had happened. And when I made the 911 call, I couldn't even get out the words. And from then on, I don't remember a thing. It was like my brain wiped that whole memory. That was the worst day of my life. And I know it always will be. While I was still in shock, trying to process the fact that my friends were truly gone, I had been attacked by the public. I was grieving, numb, and unsure of what had happened was even real. And at the same time, I was getting flooded with death threats and hateful messages from people who did not know me at all or know the dynamic of our friendship. Social media made it so much worse, and strangers made up stories to entertain themselves. The media harassed not just me, but also my family. People showed up at our house. They called my phone, my parents' phones, other family members' phones, and we were chased while I was still trying to survive emotionally and grieve the loss of my friends. I hated and still hate that they are gone, but for some reason, I am still here and I got to live. I still think about this every day. Why me? Why did I get to live and not them? For the longest time, I could not even look at their families without feeling sick with guilt. I did not know what to say or what to do. I was terrified that my presence just made their pain worse, and I was still here when their kid, their siblings, and their friends, their loved ones should have been here instead. After everything happened, I was afraid to go into my own backyard or alone in my house. I was scared that the person who did this would come for me next. I was always scared that the media would try to catch me at any moment of any day, even when I was just walking around my house. I made my parents close all the blinds during the day so no one could see me even in the slightest chance. I barely left the house, and when I did, I made sure I was never alone. I slept in my parents' room for almost a year. I made them double lock every door, set an alarm, and still check everywhere in the room just in case someone was hiding. And I still check my room every night before, and I double lock it. I have not slept through a single night since this happened. I constantly wake up in panics, terrified. Someone is breaking in, or someone is here to hurt me, or I'm about to lose someone else that I love. The fear never really leaves. For a long time, I could barely get out of bed, but one day I realized I have to live for them. They did not get the chance to keep living, but I do, and I will not take that for granted. So now every day I remind myself to live for them, and everything I do it with them in mind. I am still scared to go out in public, but I force myself to do things because I know that they would want me to keep living my life to the fullest. I am beyond blessed to still be here, and I refuse to take that for granted when they did not get a chance. Our house was not just a house, it was a home. It was where we laughed till we couldn't breathe, make meals, did crafts, binge watch reality shows, played games, and spent lazy days on the couch. It was movie nights, wine nights, morning debriefs, pranks, hot chocolate, cookies, and warmth. I would cherish those memories forever, and I will not let what happened erase how special our home was or how much those memories meant to me. Now I would like to share some bits and pieces of who they were as people and some of the memories that we shared. One of my favorite memories was Halloween, and we all went to Sigma Chi. But instead of partying, we just sat in an apartment, talking and laughing all night long. I do not think I've ever laughed that hard in my life. We did not care about the party, we were just happy to be with each other. Xana was 1 in a million. She was the life of the party. But she was also the kindest and funniest person I knew. Everyone loved her because she made everyone feel so loved. She was just someone you always wanted to be around, no matter the circumstance. One of my favorite days with Xana was when she laid on the couch, when we laid on the couch together all day watching movies and snacking. Or when she, Maddie, and I would go and get margaritas, chips, and salsa. She would also light up a room with her presence alone. Kaylee had the most beautiful, radiant smile. And she was so kind, but also one of the funniest people I've ever known. She loved playing little pranks. And she always had us laughing so hard that we could not breathe. She was so full of energy and life. I really believed that she could have ruled the world if she wanted to, and she would have been America's sweetheart. Ethan was the sweetest, most genuine guy. He was always smiling and always making other people smile too. Ethan was the kind of person you wanted around. He was so kind and easy to talk to, and just so fun. And the way he cared for Xana was truly something to admire. And really was proof that storybook love and true romances really do exist. It was not only obvious to me, but everyone that was around Ethan and Xana that they were absolute soulmates. Maddie was not only one of my best friends, but she was the older sister I would have always wanted. There was no one I looked up to or admired more than Maddie. She was truly a ray of sunshine, and everyone was drawn to her. She was so kind, loving, funny, fun, and passionate. She had the sweetest soul and wanted nothing but the best for everyone, and to love and show love to everyone. She took me under her wing and always made me feel so safe and included, and above all, loved and valued. She never failed to make me laugh or put a smile on my face. Still to this day, I am beyond grateful that she chose me to be her sorority little, and I thank God every day that I not only got to know her, but had her as one of my best friends. Honestly, I cannot pinpoint one favorite memory with Maddie because I have so many, and this would be a very long read if I did. But if some little memories with her that I cherish is when the two of us made a nice dinner and split some wine, or when we would binge watch Jersey Shore or Summer House. When we came up with a whole dance routine on Halloween and danced and sang all night, like no one was watching. All the late night walks home from going out, and just little shopping trips and so much more. I am beyond blessed that I had the chance to know each and every one of them. They changed my life in ways I would have never put into words. I hope that they are remembered for who they are, not what happened to them, because who they are were so beautiful, and they deserve to be remembered in the highest way. My heart breaks every time I go to text one of them or how badly I wish I could see and hang out with them. And then I remember I cannot. I will never be able to again. But I still talk to them in my prayers every single night, and I always will. I wish more than anything I could hug them one last time. And I wish I could tell them how much I love them. And even though I cannot, I still tell them every night. I will keep living for them as long as I am lucky enough to still be here. And they were all truly one of a kind, and they will be in our hearts forever and always.
Thank you, and please convey to Bethany my appreciation for her courage, and I hope that she heals.
Next is Dylan Mortensen. We're asking for some accommodations for Ms. Mortensen and that she be allowed to sit in my seat.
Sure. Dylan, just take your time, all right?
Thank you, Your Honor. What happened that night changed everything. Because of him, 4 beautiful, genuine, compassionate people were taken from this world for no reason. He didn't just take their lives. He took the light they carried it into every room. He took away how they made everyone feel safe, loved, and full of joy. He took away the ability for me to tell them that I love them and that I'm so proud of them. He took away who they were becoming and the futures they were going to have. He took away birthdays, graduations, celebrations, and all the memories that we were supposed to make. All of it is gone. And all the people who loved them are just left to carry that weight forever. He didn't just take them from the world. He took them from me, my friends, my people who felt like my home, the people I looked up to and adored more than anyone. He took away my ability to trust the world around me. What he did shattered me in places I didn't know could break. I was barely 19 when he did this. We had just celebrated my birthday at the end of September. I should have been figuring out who I was. I should have been having the college experience and starting to establish my future. Instead, I was forced to learn how to survive the unimaginable. I couldn't be alone. I had to sleep in my mom's bed because I was too terrified to close my eyes. Terrified that if I blinked, someone might be there. I made escape plans everywhere I went. If something happens, how do I get out? What can I use to defend myself? Who can help? And then there are the panic attacks. The kind that slam into me like a tsunami out of nowhere. I can't breathe. I can't think. I can't stop shaking. All I can do is scream because the emotional pain and the grief is too much to handle. My chest feels like it's caving in. Sometimes I drop to the floor with my heart racing, convinced something is very wrong. It's far beyond anxiety. It's my body reliving everything over and over again. My nervous system never got the message that it is over, and it won't let me forget what he did to them. People call me strong. They say I'm a survivor, but they don't see what my new reality looks like. They don't see the panic attacks, the hypervigilance, the exhaustion, the way I scan every room I enter, the way I flinch at sudden sounds. They don't know how heavy it is to carry so much pain and still be expected to keep going, and that's because of him. He stole parts of me I may never get back. He took the version of me who didn't constantly ask, what if it happens again? What if next time I don't survive? He may have shattered parts of me, but I'm still putting myself back together. Piece by piece, I'm learning how to live in this new version of life. It is not easy. It hurts, but I'm still trying. Still trying, and I'm not trying just for me. I'm trying for them, my friends. About a year ago, I had a dream about them. I got to say goodbye. I told them I won't be able to see you again, so I need to tell you goodbye. They all kept asking why, and all I could say was, I can't tell you, but I have to. When I woke up, I felt shattered and heartbroken. but also strangely grateful. Like maybe in some way that dream gave us the goodbye we never got. Still, no dream can replace them, and no goodbye will ever feel finished. He is a hollow vessel, something less than human. A body without empathy, without remorse. He chose destruction. He chose evil. He feels nothing. He tried to take everything from me. My friends, my safety, my identity, my future. He took their lives, but I will continue trying to be like them, to make them proud. Living is how I honor them. Speaking today is to help me find some sort of justice for them. And I will never let him take that from me. He may have taken so much from me, but he will never get to take my voice. He will never take the memories I had with them. He will never erase the love we shared, the laughs we had, or the way they made me feel seen and whole. Those things are mine. They are sacred, and he will never touch them. I get to feel sadness. I get to feel rage. I get to feel joy even when it's hard. I get to feel love even when it hurts. I get to live. And while I will still live with this pain, at least I get to live my life. He will stay here, empty, forgotten, and powerless.
Dylan, thank you so much for your courage. I appreciate it.
Next, we have members from the Madison Mogan family. First would be Scott Laramie, Madison Mogan's stepfather. Standing by him is Karen Laramie, Madison's mother.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Scott Laramie. I'm Maddie Mogan's stepfather and the husband of Maddie's mother, Karen Laramie. I will read this victim impact statement on behalf of Karen and myself. Maddie was our gift of life, our purpose, and our hope. Maddie quickly became Karen's joy, identity, and purpose in life. I joined Maddie's life when she was 2.5 years old. The experience transformed me into a life of joy, love, and family. Maddie was bright, beautiful, kind, empathic. She listened carefully to others and was observant, seeing and caring about the hearts and the minds of all she encountered. She loved music and music festivals. She had a wonderful sense of humor. She excelled in school. She was an easy child to raise, almost never requiring discipline, and almost always giving us parental joy. One time Karen remembers disciplining Maddie as a little girl. Maddie responded, "You broke my heart," which of course melted ours. She had a keen wit, even at that young age. As she transitioned into teenage years, she prioritized us and extended family over many of the distractions that capture teenagers. She showered us with her presence and love at family events, barbecues, picnics, birthdays, holidays, and others. She spent countless hours with her papa, her Uncle David, Aunt Nadine, and her other close family and friends. This world was a better place with her in it. As she reached adulthood, Maddie applied her studies to be a marketing professional. entering into an internship at Payne West, and started planning her professional future. As with all things, she involved Karen and myself in the joy of her journey. As she transitioned into womanhood, Karen and I continued to be astounded at this wonderful and accomplished person we had created. All parents dream of their children accomplishing more than them. We realized this dream, all we had not become, she was becoming. Karen and I are ordinary people, but we lived extraordinary lives because we had Maddie. Maddie was taken senselessly and brutally in a sudden act of evil. She was taken along with the young, promising, and bright lives of Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. First, we felt disbelief. Next, we felt disorientation. Then we felt grief overcome us. Our grief is compounded even more for the Goncalves, Kernodle, and Chapin families. We speak of hope and healing, and we do have hope and some healing. But the vast emotional wound will never fully heal. Since Maddie's loss, there's emptiness in our hearts, home, and family, an endless void. After losing her mother in a car crash, Karen took years to grieve and recover. The feeling that her life with Maddie and Abe was perfect helped her to start to heal. Now, this is no longer perfect. After Maddie's loss, Karen felt like she was spinning out, emotionally collapsing into anxiety and depression. She sometimes asks, how am I supposed to go on when I've lost my favorite person in the world? I felt the same, and we continue to struggle. The loss of Maddie has impacted so many beyond our family. Her second family is her sorority sisters who grieve alongside us. She has so many close friends who suffer from her loss. We will continue to be. Her loss will continue to be felt by the Vandal community, including Vandal Solutions on campus, where she volunteered her time for others. It helps us to know Maddie is in heaven now, freed from the trials of this earth. We, however, continue to live on without the grace and support of her presence. We will grow old without our only child, our bright, beautiful friend and daughter. In the end, there are no words that can accurately capture the devastation of losing Maddie. We will endure, and we will go on. For Maddie, we will not let our grief consume us. For Maddie, we will continue to love and care for our family and friends, including the families of Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. We will remain united with them. We can only hope that others out there suffering similar losses can look to us and see that we can overcome hatred, darkness, and evil. We know the law allows us to comment on the defendant and his sentence. As for his sentence, we support the plea agreement. Society needs to be protected against this evil. As for the defendant, we will not waste words, nor will we fall into hatred and bitterness. Evil has many faces, and we now know this, but evil does not deserve our time and attention. We are done being victims. We are taking back our lives. We will turn our time, talents, and attention to hope, healing, and helping others, and to the future. We invite all those who have suffered with us on this to join us in our journey. We can make this world a better place. We can move on from tragedy. Adversity will visit us, evil will visit us, but we will overcome. We can and will endure. Karen and I express our gratitude to Your Honor and to the prosecution team for allowing us the opportunity to make this statement. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your courage, and I am so sorry for your loss. God bless
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, this is Leander James. He's the attorney for the Mogyn family and victim advocate. He'll be reading a statement for Karen Laramie.
May it please the court, counsel. My name is Leander James. I am the pro bono counsel for Karen and Scott Laramie. Karen has asked me to read this statement into the record. I thank my husband, Scott, for his statement, his courage, and his unending love and support during this dark time. While words are inadequate to capture the impact of this horrific crime on our family, he expressed it as best anyone could. For Maddie's sake, I will add my supplement statement that incorporates additional impact in the context of my extended family. I am grateful to Maddie's great uncle, Bryan Kohberger, for assisting me with the difficult task of putting our pain into words. For me and my extended family, Maddie was our hope and our light. Her beauty, both outside and in, shone its light upon everyone with whom she came in contact. Her beauty, she carried that hope and light into the future for our entire family. We have memories of our Maddie and grief and pain at her being taken from our presence. Any one of us would have given our own light to have been outshone by hers. We now look to our Creator to know that her light continues where we look to see her in His presence. Those who commit evil for their own twisted gains and purposes truly defile the efforts and sacrifices of mothers, fathers, families, teachers, clergy, public servants, service members, and all those who commit themselves to the greater good, freedoms, and the future light of our nation. Condemnation falls heavily upon those who squandered the lives of our future hopes and dreams. Some may offer forgiveness for what the defendant has done. However, we cannot at this time, or perhaps ever, nor will we ask for mercy for what he has done. His acts are too heinous, the agony and grief he has caused too great. But we will waste no further words or thoughts on him. For Maddie's sake, we will move on. We will do our best to carry Maddie's light into this world and make it a better place. I thank the court and the prosecution for allowing me the opportunity to make my statement, and I thank all those who have and will support my family and the families of Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Laramie. Appreciate it.
Next is Ben Mogyn, the father of Maddie Mogyn.
Yes, of course.
Actually, Your Honor, it'll be Kim Cheely, the grandmother of Maddie Mogen.
My name is Kim Cheely. I was Maddie Mogen's paternal grandmother, as Ben Mogen, her father, is my son. I'm here today with my sister Lori Cheely, Maddie's great aunt, and my son Ben Mogen, and my daughter-in-law Corey Hatrock. I'd like to begin by thanking a number of people involved in bringing this case to closure. In my daughter's words, the plea deal the prosecution team reached this month is one that punishes the perpetrator of this horrendous crime, protects the public from further harm, and allows all of us who knew and loved these kids the time to grieve without the anxiety of the long and gruesome trial, the years of appeals, and potential for mistrials along the way. My family and I are so grateful to Bill Thompson and his prosecution team for their dedication and painstaking work that forced the perpetrator to admit his guilt. We want to thank the Idaho State Police, the Moscow Police Department, the FBI, and Judge Hippler. We'd also like to thank the University of Idaho officials who have treated the families of the victims with such dignity and kindness, and who have honored the 4 victims beautifully. Maddie was my first grandchild, so when she was born, all her grandparents had the distinct pleasure of deciding what we'd like to be called. I chose Nana, pretty original. But when Maddie was about a year and a half old, her papa, Ben's dad, and I were planning to visit the new little family in Oregon. Maddie didn't have an extensive vocabulary at the time, but for some unknown reason, she called bananas ba-deedle-deedles. When Karen and Ben told her Nana was coming to visit, she figured, I say deedle-deedle for that word. So I became deedle-deedle, shortened to Deedle when she was about 6 or 7, and I was Deedle all her life. I don't think her stepdad, Scotty, ever knew my given name was Kim. Maddie's and my birthdays were one day apart, and a couple years before she was killed, she gave me this necklace with Deedle and Maddie engraved on it, and I added an angel wing, and it's one of my treasured possessions. I also got an angel wing tattoo, never thought I'd see the day, but along with many members of our family, replicating the one that Maddie and her sorority sisters had. I wanted mine where I could see and touch it often. From preschool through grade school, I stopped teaching piano lessons early on Wednesdays and picked Maddie up for bubble baths, brownies, and books. It was our special time together, and she went home those nights in her jammies with a pan of warm brownies for her family. Although Karen and Scotty raised Maddie and did such a lovely job of parenting, we Mogens were lucky to have her for holidays and many other family gatherings. We'll always have our treasured memories of Maddie growing up in our big, extended, cooperative family, and I thank Karen and Scotty Laramie for being so generous and open and sharing Maddie with her Mogen side of the family. When the 4 kids were murdered, the foundation fell out of our world. Initially, the fear was truly debilitating. The first 6 weeks were excruciating. Despite the vigils, memorials, candlelight gatherings of students, friends, family, community members. After the arrest, in the past 2.5 years, my family has lived with grief, with the effects of traumatic grief, of which I was blissfully unaware before all of this. I now have a stack of books on grief. I've attended grief classes at hospice. I've tried EMDR, a technique that helps replace disturbing visions with something more comforting. My son Ben, his two sisters, Maddie's aunts, and I have all experienced depression and anxiety and sleep disturbance, requiring medical intervention at times. We've all sought counseling off and on. The struggle with media attention was extremely difficult, especially for Ben. No one should live through the violent murder of one's child. Some days it's beyond me how the parents of these kids are still upright. I'm thankful for the strong families and communities that are supporting the survivors. At the time, I could think of only two blessings surrounding the horrific murders. One was that Ben was living with my partner Tom and me at the time, and that we could support each other emotionally through it all. Sadly, Tom died a year ago of a rare brain cancer, and he won't be here to see justice served. He was our family's rock, and we all miss him every day. A second blessing is that my mother died of COVID several months before the kids were killed, and she didn't have to live through the horror. It was difficult to identify blessings. So we've all lost our dear child and a future with her. I ache for the loss of the dreams that she and her true love, Jake, held. And my heart goes out to Karen and Scotty and your side of Maddie's family. You've had more than your share of loss. My heart aches for the kids' roommates and the families of the other victims, and also the family of the perpetrator. Going forward, we Mogans are choosing to put our energy and focus into honoring Maddie's too short life and sweet spirit by celebrating Maddie May Day, which my two daughters established. On May 25th each year, Maddie's birthday, we encourage folks to do random acts of kindness in Maddie's name. In my daughter Katie's words, may we all protect our peace in whatever way possible, unite in community, and focus on joy. Please do an act in kindness in Maddie's honor during this week, so a glimmer of Maddie's light may live on. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate your courage, and bless you and your family.
Thank you.
Now it's Ben Mogan, Maddie Mogan's father.
I'm Benjamin Mogan. I'm Maddie's dad. And first I just want to say thanks to all the people that helped bring this all to a close. I know it's not the resolution that everyone, wanted, but I think that that everyone worked so hard, and we really appreciate all their efforts. It was such a hard thing to go through for everybody. Maddie was my only child that I ever had. She was the only great thing I ever really did, and the only thing I was really ever proud of. And thought we would have the rest of our lives together to be together and to know each other, and I took for granted the times, she was in college, and I thought, oh, well, we'll have the rest of our lives to do all the stuff that we're supposed to do, and she was just about done. She actually earned all of her credits for her college degree, and Karen and Scotty and I got to go and get her diploma that she actually earned, and she deserved every bit of that. And but I thought that was going to be just the beginning of a long life together, and we never got that. Karen and Scotty did such a great job raising her after Karen and I split up, and I'm so thankful for Scotty and the role that he played in her life when I wasn't able to. But we got to spend a lot of great times together, Maddie and I. She was my favorite person to go to a concert with. We got to see some fun shows together, and I told her, if there's ever a show that you want to go to, you let me know, and I'll get you tickets for you and your friend, or if we want to go together, we'll make it happen. And my favorite memory with her was when the Mac Miller show sold out here in Spokane, and everyone wanted tickets, no one could get them, and on the last day before the show, they did a radio thing, and I got 4 meet and greet tickets for Maddie and her friends and me to go and see the show, and that was her favorite artist at the time, was Mac Miller, and he's gone now too, and my little cousin Zach drove us all there that night, and he's gone too, tragically, and anyway, the last thing that she ever wrote to me was this Father's Day card, and I'm so glad I still have it. I'm just going to read what she said. It says, "Happy Father's Day. I hope you have the best day. I can't wait till we can hang out again soon. I'll be in Coeur d'Alene 624 to 74. Hopefully we can find a time then. I love your birthday card that you sent me, by the way. Maybe we can see a concert sometime soon. I'd love to see the gorge when it's not so smoky out. I hope you're doing well. I'm proud of how far you've come. Thank you for always encouraging me to do my best. Love you lots and lots. Love, Maddie May." She did encourage me to not just to do my best, but to live on. I went through a lot of issues with addiction and with substance abuse, and when I wasn't wanting to live anymore, she was what would keep me from just not caring anymore, and knowing that she was out there and that she was just such a beautiful person kept me alive a lot of rough moments, and I'm so glad that she was able to meet Jake. He was the only one that actually ever got to take her to the gorge. They went and saw Watershed together, and they had a heck of a time. I'm glad she got to. That's a really special place for me, and she always wanted to work out there with me in the summer sometime. And she never got to, but at least she got to see it once with Jake. He was such a great guy. He is such a great guy. And I really wanted to see what a future with them would have looked like. I'll never I'll never be able to replace her. I wrote a bunch of stuff. I just don't know what to say right now. I just miss her so much, and I just love her more than anything. And it shouldn't have happened. And a death sentence is one thing. You know when it's going to happen, and it's going to be all gentle and stuff. But, a life without parole with a building full of people that all just want you to not be around anymore, and winking at every morning, not knowing if that's the day they're going to pull your card. I mean, it's not a very nice sentence either. So, I don't know. I just love you, Maddie, and I wish you were still here.
Thank you so much.
Your Honor, next would be members from the Kaylee Goncalves family. First will be her father, Steve Goncalves.
Today, we are here to finish what you started. Today, you've lost control. Today, we are here to prove to the world that you picked the wrong families. The wrong state, the wrong police officers, the wrong community. You tried to break our community apart. You tried to plant fear. You tried to divide us. You failed. Instead, your actions have united everyone in their disgust for you. I just learned from these lead investigators, to their shock, they worked in an investigation and actually worked with Pennsylvania police officers and the federal FBI. You united everyone. Everyone was united after you. None of us are divided. We are united in our disgust and our love for these children. Today you have no name. Because when this all started, we all came together and we said, let's stop even talking about his name and just use initials. So even the media just calls you BK. That's all you are. Looking back when the police officers knocked on my door, told me what happened to my child, told me what happened to Maddie Mae, I don't think he was even out of the driveway before my kids turned around, looked at me and said, what do we do, Dad? I told them, you get to work. You get your ass to work. And we started calling, we started texting, we started emailing. And you know what? Within hours, we had your white car on the camera. We knew from the very beginning we had you. Police officers tell us within minutes they had your DNA, like a calling card. You were that careless, that foolish, that stupid. Master degree, you're a joke, complete joke. But we took this disaster and we did what we could. We put everything online. We took our kids, we took our images, we took everything that they did, their videos, their photos, the girls' pranks, Ethan singing. We put it out there, we shared it with the world. And the world united. And all they ended up, when they talked about this case, is they talked about Kaylee Jade, Maddie Mae, Xana, and Ethan. Everything what these people meant to us, a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, we shared that with our community. Then we shared it with our state. We shared it with the country, and eventually we shared it with the world. The world's watching because of the kids, not because of you. Nobody cares about you. You're not worth the time, the effort to be remembered. In time, you will be nothing but 2 initials forgotten to the wind. No visitors, nothing more than initials on an otherwise unmarked tombstone. From this moment, we've all started. From this moment, we will forget you. We want to all leave in closing. One last thing. You picked the wrong family, and we're laughing at you on your trip to the pen. That will be today or tomorrow. I'll close with, God bless all the men and women that worked on this case and all the hard work that you guys did. You guys allowed us to grieve and allowed us to get through this. The amount of work that you guys put together and the way that you guys put it together was beautiful. There was hard times to be expected. But thank you all. God bless.
Thank you.
Your Honor, next is Stephen Goncalves, Kaylee's brother.
Stephen's actually gonna pass. I'm gonna go.
Okay. Alivea Goncalves, Kaylee's sister.
Hello, I'd like to start by thanking the court for allowing me the time and opportunity to speak today. My name is Alivea, and I'm the big sister of Kaylee Goncalves, and I was blessed to love Madison Mogen as a sister too. I'm not here today to speak in grief. I'm here to speak in truth. Because the truth is, my sister Kaylee and her best friend Maddie were not yours to take. They were not yours to study, to stalk, or to silence. They were 2 pieces of a whole, the perfect yin and yang. They are everything that you could never be. Loved, accepted, vibrant, accomplished, brave, and powerful. Because the truth about Kaylee and Maddie is they would have been kind to you. If you had approached them in their everyday lives, they would have given you directions, thanked you for the compliment, or awkwardly giggled to make your own words less uncomfortable for you. In a world that rejected you, they would have shown mercy. Because the truth is, I'm angry. Every day I'm angry. I'm left shouting at the inside of my own head everything I wish I could say to you. The truth about me is when I heard the news, I didn't cry. I listened for them. I promised them I would, that I would fight for them, that I would show up no matter what it cost me. I swore I'd never let them feel alone. Because you see, I've always been their heavyweight. I've always been the one to fight the battles they didn't feel ready to fight themselves. All it ever took was a call, and they knew I would handle it for them, no matter the time, no matter the cost. They could wave their white flag because they knew I would never back down, not for them, and not even death could change that. Somewhere along the line, I started to think about what I would say to them if I was given just one last chance. If I could gather enough heartbreak or love or sacrifice or whatever it took to get just one message across, what would I say? Throughout this entire process, I've written my feelings down at every moment, my wishes, my love, my denial, my anger. And as one final act of love, I'd planned to read these thoughts, even jarring and discombobulating and not even making sense. Because for me, that was true love. As bare and as naked as it could be, not laced in pretty words or dressed for the occasion, but written through bleary eyes at 2 a.m. with clenched fists, angry at this reality. My true final act of love was to continue on without them, for them. That dream to read aloud my love to them, to bring meaning through pain, was the latest blow in realizing you don't deserve it. And Kaylee and Maddie don't need it. Kaylee and Maddie have always known my love, and they would never ask me to prove it by further victimizing myself to a defendant who has shown no guilt, no remorse, no apprehension. They would say to me, "Why would you give the satisfaction of showing vulnerability now? You promised you would never back down." And for that clarity, I'm thankful. I won't stand here and give you what you want. I won't offer you tears. I won't offer you trembling. Disappointments like you thrive on pain, on fear, and on the illusion of power. And I won't feed your beast. Instead, I will call you what you are: sociopath, psychopath, murderer. I will ask the questions that reverberate violently in my own head, so loudly that I can't think straight most any day. Some of these might be familiar, so sit up straight when I talk to you. How was your life right before you murdered my sisters? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your apartment? Please detail what you were thinking and feeling at this time. Why did you choose my sisters? Before making your move, did you approach my sisters? Detail what you were thinking and feeling. Before leaving their home, is there anything else you did? How does it feel to know the only thing you failed more miserably at than being a murderer is trying to be a rapper? Did you recently start shaving or manually pulling out your eyebrows? Why November 13th? Did you truly think your Amazon purchase was untraceable because you used a gift card? How do you find it enjoyable to stargaze with such a severe case of visual snow? Where is the murder weapon, the clothes you wore that night? What did you bring into the house with you? What was the second weapon you used on Kaylee? What were Kaylee's last words? Please describe in detail the level of anxiety you must have felt when you heard the Bearcat pull up to your family home on December 30th, 2022. Which do you regret more? Returning to the crime scene 5 hours later, or never, ever going back to Moscow, not even once, after stalking them there for months? If you were really smart, do you think you'd be here right now? What's it like needing this much attention just to feel real? You're terrified of being ordinary, aren't you? Do you feel anything at all? Or are you exactly what you always feared? Nothing. If you're so powerful, then why are you still hiding, defendant? You see, I'm here today as me. But who are you? Let's try to take off your mask and see. You didn't create devastation. You revealed it in yourself. And that darkness you carry, that emptiness, you'll sit with it long after this is over. That is your sentence. And it was written on the wall long before you ever pled guilty. You didn't win. You just exposed yourself as the coward you are. You're a delusional, pathetic, hypochondriac loser who thought you were so much smarter than everybody else. Constantly scolding, turning your nose up to grammar mistakes, nitpicking and criticizing others. You wanted so badly to be different, to be special, to be better, to be deep, to be mysterious. You found yourself thinking you were better than everyone else, and you thought you could figure out the human psyche and see through it, all while tweaked out on heroin. Lurking in the shadows made you feel powerful because no one ever paid you any attention in the light. You thought you were exceptional, all because of a grade on a paper. You thought you were elite because your online IQ test from 2010 told you so. All of that effort just to seem important. It's desperate. There is a name for your condition, though. Your inflated ego just didn't allow you to see it. Wannabe. You act like no one could ever understand your mind, but the truth is you're basic. You're a textbook case of insecurity disguised as control. Your patterns are predictable. Your motives are shallow. You are not profound. You're pathetic. You aren't special or deep, not mysterious or exceptional. Don't ever get it twisted again. No one is scared of you today. No one is intimidated by you. No one is impressed by you. No one thinks that you are important. You orchestrated this like you thought you were God. Now look at you, begging a courtroom for scraps. You spent months preparing, and still all it took was my sister in a sheath. You work so hard to seem dangerous, but real control doesn't have to prove itself. The truth is, the scariest part about you is how painfully average you turned out to be. The truth is, you're as dumb as they come. Stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty. Let me be very clear. Don't ever try to convince yourself you mattered just because someone finally said your name out loud. I see through you. You want the truth? Here's the one you'll hate the most. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep, in the middle of the night, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your fucking ass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Christy Goncalves, Kaylee Goncalves' mother.
Thank you, Your Honor. I never imagined having to speak to someone so devoid of humanity. For a long time, I didn't think I'd find the words low enough to meet you where you are. But now I realize this isn't about you. It's about what you've done to me, and I need you to hear it. When you murdered my daughter, Kaylee Jade Goncalves, you didn't just take her life, you shattered others. You attacked what you could never be, and in doing so, you left a trail of devastation far beyond that house. You stole my peace. You've altered my every waking moment, every sleepless night, the way I view the world, people, safety, trust. It's all been changed by your cruelty. I no longer recognize parts of myself. Joy is harder to find. Laughter feels foreign. The world moves forward, but I'm suspended in a place of sorrow and rage. You've taken from me something that can never be restored. The grief sits with me every day, some days quietly, and other days so loud it drowns out everything else. The emotional toll you've inflicted on me is immeasurable. I live with a constant ache, with birthdays that are now memorials, with holidays that feel hollow, with empty chairs that scream louder than words ever could. I am forever changed. But for you, as a person working on a PhD in criminal justice, you really didn't think this one through. You're not that good. In fact, you're not that good at anything. You couldn't secure a job. You couldn't get along with others. You couldn't even get a female to look in your direction. All because you are pathetic. Now you're a joke in this courtroom. I wish I could crown you with a jester hat to complete your orange jumpsuit clown look. A dead killer doesn't kill again. So while I'm disappointed the firing squad won't get to take their shots at you, I'm confident that the men in prison will. have their way with you in more ways than one. You will finally get what you wanted, physical touch. Just probably not how you were expecting it. See, you haven't beat the system. You've simply entered a new one, where the rules are cruel and the consequences will never end. You are entering a place where no one will care who you are and no one will ever respect you. You will be forgotten, discarded, used, and erased. You will always be remembered as a loser, an absolute failure. And when those prison doors slam shut behind you, I hope that sound echoes in your heart for the rest of your meaningless days. I hope it reminds you of what we all already know. You're nothing. May you continue to live your life in misery. You are officially the property of the state of Idaho, where your fellow inmates are anxiously awaiting your arrival. But it's okay, because they're there to help you. Hell will be waiting. Quick message from our youngest daughter. Aubrey wanted to say, you may have received A's in high school and college, but you're going to be getting big D's in prison.
Thank you. Do we have more from the Goncalves family, or are you?
Yes. Next would be Shannon Gray, the Goncalves family attorney. He'll be reading statements from Kaylee Goncalves' grandmothers.
Well,
Morning, Your Honor. Shannon Gray, the attorney for the Goncalves family. I actually have 3 statements, one from her aunt and 2 from her grandparents. This is from her aunt, Tammy Butts. You, in the cloak of darkness, made a decision to turn our whole family's world upside down forever. You, in the cloak of darkness, took our Kaylee J. Goncalves away from us all without hesitation. Never have you shown any remorse or regret. We just get creepy, non-expressive stares as you have your team of women defend you. Kaylee was a strong, kind, fun-loving, caring person, and she will greatly be missed by all her family and friends for the rest of our lives. She had goals in life that you took from her and us. We lose on watching her enjoying her life, working hard and building the future she wanted. She was ready to start that after college life. You, in the cloak of darkness, took it all away. You left us without her future wedding, her future children that she would have added to our family. No more talking to her on the phone, going for a coffee, celebrating holidays. It's all gone. You, in the cloak of darkness, gave each and every one of Kaylee's family members their own lifetime sentence. You, in the cloak of darkness, also took our Maddie Mae from all of us. She was so genuine, caring, polite. She was part of our family. You came in, harmed our children that were younger women than you in their own beds. You're nothing, you're a coward. It's not right that you have received life. I pray that you meet your end in the cloak of darkness, burn in hell. I have 2 other statements, Your Honor. This is Linda Lucan's statement. This is Kaylee's grandmother. I really don't know how to address something so inhumane, but I will try. Nothing in the past 2.5 years has made any sense. All I get is you cowardly went into a home at night, filled with what I'm sure you thought was all sleeping girls, and went on a vicious killing spree for no other reason but to appease your demonic urges. You took my granddaughter Kaylee from us, plus 3 other beautiful lives. You took my granddaughter Kaylee, beautiful, sweet-souled, doll-faced Kaylee, who was getting ready to start her amazing life, who had such a bright future. who was loved by so many, who you were so envious of. She had a life you could never have. You are so beyond human. You're definitely a demon from hell. I truly wish your punishment would be the same death you inflicted on our kids. But I think you will meet some new friends in prison who will be there just to help you. Thumbs up. And I have one last statement, Your Honor. This is from Cheryl Goncalves, Kaylee's other grandmother. John 1:5 says, "Light shines in the darkness, and the darkness overcomes it not." Somewhere in your life, some jealousy, envy, ego, something went dark. It pushed out all light until you became dark and evil. And when you saw my granddaughter and her friends, their light, because they have such a light, you couldn't stand it. Because the darkness in you could not stand the light in them. And so you decided to destroy it. Cowardly, you walked into their rooms in the dark and took their lives, hoping to get rid of your darkness. But you didn't. You failed. Because you know what was once a light shown only to their friends, families, and loved ones is now all over the world. Everyone sees it. Their smile, their beauty, their plans, everything they were and had. And you think you put a close to it, even that, but you didn't. Because they still exist. They are still light. They are still beautiful. You can never take that away. They will always be in the light of all eternity. And you will be in the darkness because you could not overcome it. You failed. I want you to be gone, more than gone. I want you to be cast out. Cast out from my life, from my family, from this earth. I will not allow your hatred to penetrate into my own soul. You did not get that power. You are evil, and in the end, evil is eradicated. You didn't take Kaylee's light, you spread it into the world. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. Are you moving to a different family now? All right, why don't we take a 10-minute recess, all right?
Good God, what just happened that we watched together? Kaylee Goncalves' sister, Alivea, with the most powerful victim impact statement I've ever heard, completely flipping the whole narrative, refusing to talk about her pain or to read, as she described it, from the journal she's been keeping as she's gone through all of the emotions following her sister's murder, something she considered doing, and instead going on offense, diminishing him, mocking him, laughing at him. Literally, there was a laugh at one point as she called him pathetic, a loser, and said in that moment that we're all still reeling from. Hold on, I want to get it because I wrote it down exactly. If you hadn't attacked them in the middle of the night while they were asleep, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your fucking ass. That was the position she came from, Alivea Goncalves, from a position of strength as the big sister who always protected her younger sisters, as she called both Kaylee and her best friend, Maddie Mogen. Wow. That was something to watch. Steve Goncalves, who originally had said he wasn't going to speak at all at this thing, got up, turned the lectern to face Bryan Kohberger, to stare him down and to have his say in the same defiant tone, with the same righteous anger he addressed him. Both of the Goncalveses there, and the mother too, refusing to sound like they'd been victimized, saying, today you've lost control. You picked the wrong families, the wrong state, the wrong police. He said, your actions have united everyone in their disgust for you. None of us are divided. We're united in our disgust and in our love for our children. You have no name. We only call you BK. The media's been calling you that too. You're a joke, he said, Steve Goncalves. He made the point that we've shared the videos of our 4 children with the world. That's what they know. They know their names. They know their joy. They know their love for one another. They know their zest for life. That's who they've been discussing, he said. The world is watching because of the kids, not because of you. No one cares about you. You'll be forgotten. From this moment, we will forget you. Ending with, you picked the wrong family. Again, we're laughing at you on your trip to the penitentiary. And then the big sister, Alivea, making it even more clear. Is the panel with me, Steve? I haven't, yeah, they're with me. Okay, back with me now. Phil Holloway, Howard Blum, and also Matt Murphy has joined us as well. Guys, that was extraordinary. Phil, I'll start with you.
Yeah, you know, Megyn, I posted in response to something you posted on X during that statement by the sister is just the most powerful thing that I have ever heard in terms of victim impact statements. And I hope that her words will echo in his despicable brain for the rest of his natural life. Because look, he doesn't have to sit there in prison and worry about ever facing the firing squad in Idaho. But hopefully she has given him something to think about, and I hope that it haunts him for all of his days. All of these speakers did a very good job so far in expressing to the public what this kind of thing does to families. It shatters families. You bring step parents in, and you bring extended family in, and it just the reverberations of this type of cruel, evil attack just seem to be never ending. But these human beings have come into this courtroom and have expressed to the world now what the impact is of this type of a horrific crime. Even though it's not going to make one difference in the sentence, hopefully it gives this guy something to think about as he rots in prison.
It's satisfying to watch, whether it changes that sentence or not. There's something very satisfying about watching them say those things to him. Howard, the sisters, Alivea's remarks must have jumped out to you because of those questions she was asking him.
Yes, it was very poignant. It was Old Testament fury. She was just unleashing all her rage. Though at one point she said, "You're afraid to be ordinary." I think really when the people were discussing what they missed most, they missed the ordinary moments with their loved ones that they'll never have again. It was like a scene from the Thornton Wilder play where he comes back and he looks at his family having breakfast. He's in heaven and he can never have that experience again. And that's what they're missing. Kohberger's fate was that he could never be part of that world. He could never be ordinary. Right. It wasn't that he didn't want to be ordinary. He didn't know how to be ordinary.
Right. And she went through, Matt Murphy, it was fascinating, that those recitations, the questions that she asked, seemed to me to be pulled from Bryan Kohberger's questionnaire that he submitted as a PhD student in criminology. It was either as a PhD student or as a master's student at DeSales. But he submitted that questionnaire for criminals asking questions like the ones she posited there, like, why did you choose? And then she said, my sisters, referring to Maddie as her sisters, to detail you what you were thinking and feeling. If memory serves, these are pulled in part directly from his survey. And then she inserted her own questions, like, where's the second murder weapon you used on Kaylee, which was a brand new fact none of us had ever heard.
Well, she knows that with the prospect of a statement and allocution looming, he's going to have an opportunity perhaps to answer those questions. So she's calling him out ahead of time, which I think is very, very clever, because of course he's not going to answer any of those questions. Another thing that I think was incredibly powerful about that, and we've talked about this before, Megyn, is that when it comes to the personality of the psychopath, and that really is what I think Bryan Kohberger is, they don't really respond to things like a grandmother's tears or the emotional impact on a mother who's lost her child. They're almost immune from that sort of thing. But when it comes to the narcissism that is possessed by a lot of psychopaths, he cut deep. and using the language of people in their 20s, he heard all that. You're a loser, and you're basic, you're not profound, you're pathetic, and you're exactly right, Megyn. She obviously spent a lot of time going through his own writings and knew exactly where those exposed nerves were. And I'll tell you what, as I'm listening to that, it was incredibly powerful. I've sat through dozens and dozens and dozens of these things over the years, and that one will stand out because if he listens to anybody, if he's going to go into prison with anybody's words ringing in his head, it is that woman just laying it out. And that last thing that you already hit on, if you hadn't attacked them in their sleep like a pedophile, and that's something he's got to be concerned about, especially if he ever sees or even sniffs general population, which I don't think he ever will. She is raising the sexual component that we talked about before. And my sister would have kicked your fucking ass. That is, he'll hear that and he's going to remember those words, I think.
It was extra powerful because obviously this guy has like some seriously deep misogynistic issues. And so for this young, beautiful woman who he knows would also never have him, to stand up there and laugh at him and call him pathetic and a loser and tell him this other woman who he could only subdue because she was sleeping would have kicked his fucking ass was so powerful. A moment that you feel like while he has no empathy whatsoever for victims, he does have feelings about himself and his own deep inadequacies. And yes, she knew exactly how to twist the knife, which is, a perfect, for now, ending to their relationship.
Can I add another element to that as well, Megyn? There was a bit of minor rebellion in that, which I also kind of love. And Judge Hippler handled it perfectly. When somebody gives a victim impact statement, they're not supposed to address the defendant directly. They're supposed to address the court. So the fact that Mr. Goncalves and her sister both faced him directly and spoke directly to him, it's kind of pushing the limits of the rules, but that was their opportunity to do it. And I really appreciate the fact that the court did not attempt to correct them on that. They had their moment. And look, in the victim rights, the victim impact world, people that have suffered from violent crime, that woman spoke for a lot of people today. And that was very powerful, I thought.
We are right now awaiting the remainder of the Bryan Kohberger sentencing hearing. We've heard from the families of Maddie Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves. We have not yet heard from Ethan Chapin's or Xana Kernodle's families. We also heard, and I'll get to this in 1 second, but an extraordinary moment from the two surviving roommates, which was shocking. One had her statement read by a friend. One, the one we've been speculating about all along, Howard Blum, Dylan Mortensen, took to the lectern. She sat. She wasn't able to stand. She was a wreck. But she spoke about what happened that night. It was remarkable to hear her for the first time.
You have to admire her courage. To be able to do that, to relive that moment publicly, my heart goes out to her, and yet I'm filled with respect for her at the same time. And I know Kohberger, or I speculate Kohberger must have been staring at her and wondering, he saw her at that moment. He let her live. What was going on in his mind? He sat there and he looked, in my opinion, diminished today. We saw him earlier on in the proceedings. He was wearing a suit and tie. His hair was gelled. He was trying to look like a swaggering figure. Now he looks like, as the sister said, the loser he's become.
Yeah, he looks like a convicted felon sitting there in his orange jumpsuit. And Phil, he was almost expressionless for most of the testimonials, though at one point when they were talking about Maddie Mogen, her family went first, he had his hands on his swivel chair and he was swiveling a little, like a kid bored in class. And then he stopped and just stared everyone down. He was almost expressionless. When the sister said, sit up, he didn't. He remained motionless. But your thoughts on the fact that, back to my other point, the two surviving roommates took the stand. The first one, Bethany Funke, didn't. She had a friend who was featured in this documentary that I mentioned on Amazon Prime, read her statement. This is a very dear friend of all four of the roommates. She got up and read Bethany's statement. And I'm just going to play part of what she said, because this is the first time we've heard essentially from Bethany Funke, the roommate who was in the basement and didn't hear anything, to whose room Dylan Mortensen ran eventually through at some point that night because she was terrified, explain what her experience was in those hours and why she didn't immediately know something was wrong or call police. Here's her friend reading her statement. Listen.
My name is Bethany Funke, and I was roommates with Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. I not only lost some of my best friends, but I also lost a sister. Never in a million years would I have thought that something like this would have happened to my closest friends. When I first woke up that morning, I had no idea what happened. I woke up around 7 with a terrible toothache, so I called my dad, who is a dentist. He told me to take Advil, so I did, and I went back to sleep. I was still out of it and still didn't know what happened. If I had known, I of course would have called 911 right away. I still carry so much regret and guilt for not knowing what had happened and not calling right away, even though I understand it wouldn't have changed anything, not even if the paramedics had been right outside the door.
Oh, Phil.
Yeah, look, there's just no amount of counseling or therapy that can, I think, ever bring these survivors, what they've lost. I mean, they have to live the rest of their lives with this guilt. I mean, I don't personally feel that they have anything to be guilty of or to feel guilty about, but we know they do actually feel that way. And this is part of what this individual did. He not only ceased the lives of 4 individuals, he effectively destroyed the lives of these other 2, because all of the things that they were working on, all of the things that they were dreaming and hoping for the future are now gone. And all they are left with is this survivor's grief. And so to see them have the courage to finally speak out after all this time, hopefully that lets the world sort of understand better the impact of what happens to families and individuals when they're shattered by such violent crime. To your point a moment ago about the sister telling Kohberger to sit up straight, Megyn, I thought I saw a little bit of a smirk on his face. I'd have to go back and see it, but I think that she did get his attention. I don't know if it was a nervous smirk or if it was some kind of just evil smirk on his face, but I felt like when she told him to sit up straight, I felt like she did get his attention. He does sit there without emotion and without remorse, which goes to the point that I've been making for all this time, is that the death penalty should still be on the table for him, because there's no value to remaining in a world with him living in it. I think he should have to live in prison every day worrying about the firing squad in Idaho. Will the marksman hit their mark, or is it going to hurt? And he needs to be thinking about those things. But instead, he gets to live the rest of his days, perhaps giving interviews and maybe even writing books. But to be able to sit there all day and just swivel in his chair and just wait for his trip to prison seems like a very anticlimactic end to all of this.
Matt Murphy, it seemed to me that the Goncalves family was making a concerted effort to set the table for this guy to be taken out in prison. I mean, if there was a theme from the Goncalveses, to me, that was it. Steve Goncalves saying, you picked the wrong families, you picked the wrong state, you picked the wrong group of people. He was basically, because I've heard him on other interviews before saying, this is he's not one of ours. He's not from Idaho. He came from the East Coast and murdered 4 of ours. And I don't think the prisoners are going to take too kindly to that. The sister calling him a pedophile. Then the mother saying explicitly, I'm confident that the men in prison will have their way with you in more ways than one. And reading Kaylee Goncalves' little sister's statement, you may have received A's in schools, but in prison you'll be getting big D's, which everyone laughed at and clapped at. I mean, the Goncalves family got a lot of applause in response to those statements. It seems clear what this family wants to have happen to Bryan Kohberger next?
Well, he'll be in protective custody, no doubt. And they'll do their best to keep him safe. He won't be in general population. But look, 40 plus years is an awful long time. And he's going to have a target on him, and he's going to have to worry about that. And protective custody is, it's not infallible. And on my Rodney Alcala case, he got beat up in the hallway one day when we were in the middle of trial. They're just taking an inmate past him who had butted him, spit on him, and went off on him. So it is, he will have to look over his shoulder. And, most
Matt,
families.
forgive me, they're back in session. Yep. So hold that thought, and we'll get back to court and then back to the panel.
The next family is the family of Xana Kernodle. And first would be Jasmine Kernodle, Xana's sister.
I want to say thank you to everyone who's been involved in this, and just for all the hard work and dedication you guys have put into this. I also want to thank everyone for the support, and just my family and friends who've been around through this time. I went back and forth on whether to speak today, because the truth is, you don't deserve power over my feelings, my words, or me. Thank you. In the end, I realized this moment isn't about you. It's about justice for Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie. It's about honoring the beautiful people they were and still are in God's eyes. On November 13th, 2022, a piece of my heart was ripped away. There's no way to ever fully describe the weight of losing my sister, my best friend. No sentence or punishment will ever come close to the justice Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie deserve. Xana was everyone's best friend. She was kind, she was funny. She was a gift to each person she was able to make an impact on. Xana was someone I turned to when I needed direction or advice. Although I am her older sister, I often found myself looking up to her. She had a radiant energy that everyone loved, and she always knew the right way to approach a problem. She knew how precious and special life was, and she truly did live every day to the fullest. Yet her story was cut short by an act of evil. I believe in a God whose justice is not bound by this courtroom. I find peace knowing that judgment ultimately belongs to him. For your sake, I hope one day you feel the full weight of what you did. I hope you take accountability. I hope you truly experience the guilt and you surrender yourself to Jesus Christ. Because no punishment on this earth can ever compare to the isolation and pain of eternal separation from God. Xana deserved more. They all did. But I come here to say this. I am strong. I am brave. I'm a fighter, just like Xana. And you don't get to control how I move forward or what I believe. I walk with the comfort of knowing I will see my sister again. Xana didn't get the future she deserved. She won't be the maid of honor at my wedding, the cool aunt to my future children. I'll never hear her laugh or see her light up a room ever again. But I will carry her with me for the rest of my life. I will live in her honor, fight to be the best kind of woman and someone she's proud of, to make sure the world never forgets who she was. Xana's story doesn't end with what was taken from her. It lives through the love she gave, the people she touched, and the legacy our family will protect. Her light still shines, and her voice will echo louder than this pain. You didn't take that from us, and you never will.
Thank you.
I just want to say before I start, I'm Xana's dad, Jeff Kernodle. It's been a hard road down, you know, because she's gone. And I want to thank everybody, other their families that's speaking so far, spoke about things. I agree with everything they have to say. It all comes back to a lot of the same things that I've had to deal with and we as a family have had to deal with. And that brings me, you know, basis of what I'm talking about a little bit is on my way up here, flying up here in the plane, and about halfway through the flight, this little girl is calling out for her dad. Hey, dad, and then in my mind, I was kind of half asleep. It's dark on the plane. I heard Xana calling out for me like she did, you know, back when she was little, 5 years old. And those times were hard. It was chaotic, but we always had something to work toward that was in a positive direction compared to right now, which is necessarily not as positive as that for sure. And I know I miss Xana a lot. My life's been changed, and Xana had a great impact on me. And the impact was when she was gone, I realized how important she was and what she really did for me, influenced me, was way beyond what I ever thought. She'd call me up on the weekends, check on me, see who's with me. She's like accountability to your youngest daughter. And that really made a big difference. It made me really think about things and what it's all about, you know? That's the things that I miss the most is those calls on the weekends, the calls at 11 at night. What's going on? You want to meet my friend? You know, whoever she's with, a couple of her friends, I can meet them, talk to them. And she always did that. And it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I really miss that. And she made a big impact on me, on other people, her family. But the impact that she made is so extensive on what happened here. And it goes so far. People from everywhere in the world, you know, are following things. And Xana has made a difference in their lives. So, you know, countless people told me that. They might not even know her. They never knew anything about her. It's what they see, and they just love her and say how they wish she could have been their friend. You know, could have been their friend, could have hung out, and it's like, this is a blessing, you know. This is the little kid was, and definitely was a big blessing in my life, and so is Jasmine, and basically, you know, we worked hard to do the things we did, you know, through the times they were growing up. And through those times, I realized that I wanted both of them to graduate college, and that'd be the ultimate thing for them to do to prepare for the world. Then it came back to me, Xana didn't get to finish college. He had it all figured out. And this all came back to me when I was there, and that little girl was on the plane doing that. It's like where I was going, what I was going here for. And then I just realized and thought to myself about the wonderful life that she had and we had together. And I still get to have with Jasmine, but that's the part that really counted. It's the part that really counted is those memories. And those are what I have left, the memories with her and the ones I can make with her and the life that I can go on with now, which is what she wants. And I say that in present tense because that's what she wants, because I've been told that, you know. I've been countless ways that she's out there and has a way to communicate, which I'm very grateful for. that goes to say that the impact of what happened to them, all 4 kids, goes so much further than just not me, the parents, the families, the community. It goes so far because a lot of kids, in the colleges, just for an example, they lock their doors now. The door wasn't locked in the back. Penn State or wherever it was, all the colleges I know that I've heard, they all lock their doors now. So maybe the impact that it's going to make is going to help out and maybe protect some people. Having this outreach and having the influence of what happened to these kids did, all I know is I was 7 miles away when it happened, and she wasn't feeling that good. It was 11:30, and I almost went over to Susanna's to say, and I would have been sitting right there in that couch, and you had to deal with me. So they would have had a chance, and I regret that, and I regret not going. But the reason why I didn't is because Susanna said, "Don't be drinking and driving. You got the rental car. Don't be drinking and driving." The week before that, so she was she would have been mad at me to do that. But I really wish I would have drunk and drove, because they would have had a chance, all 4 of them. At this point, I just have to go on. We're going to go on with everything and make things better in my life, because that's what it's all about. If I have closure in things, and the part that we miss is Santa, her influence, her smile, the things that she did, and we have the memories left, the great memories, and she just wants us to make more memories and not be sad or upset or shocked or taken for that, and that's what we're gonna do. We just have to. That's all I got.
Thank you for your words and your courage, and bless your family.
Next, Kim Kernodle would like to address the court.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Kim Kernodle. I am Xana's aunt. I was very blessed to have her in my life, in our family. And I thought I had everything in my head, what I wanted to say, but it kind of went out. And I'm always looking for the positive thing, because evil, hate, can destroy people. And that's what it started doing with our family. It created anger with our family members. And then I had to look, because Xana was everything that the media, her friends said. She was that fun, loving, high-spirited, beautiful person. And I no longer get to get my nails done with her, have lunch with her. Sorry. But how I look at it now is this tragedy, this horrible tragedy on all of the 4 children, has brought us closer. You united us with your actions. We're united now, and we're stronger than ever. We have family and friends now that we never knew we had. And, this is probably going to bother everybody, but Bryan, I'm here today to tell you I have forgiven you, because I no longer could live with that hate in my heart. And for me to become a better person, I have forgiven you. And anytime you want to talk and tell me what happened, get my number. I'm here. No judgment. Because I do have answers or questions that I want you to answer. And I'm here. I'll be that one that'll listen to you. Okay? Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
My name is Stratton Knodel, and I'm Xana's uncle, Jeff's brother. Sitting here today listening to all the stories and feelings and feeling the pain from everybody is a pretty powerful thing. It's each time a statement was read, it sort of would tug into my center core as I felt everybody's anguish. And Xana meant a lot to us, and we loved her very much. But I started thinking about, instead of rehashing everything that everybody else has talked about, I wanted to direct it another direction toward Bryan and what he's done to his family, his parents, his siblings, his friends, his universe. He has contaminated, tainted their family name, and pretty much made a horrible, miserable thing to be ever related to him. And I know that that's what he has to live with, and that has to be his pain. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Next, Your Honor, I believe Randy Davis, stepfather to Xana Kernodle, would like to address the court.
Hi, my name's Randy, stepdad of Xana. I just feel the same way we all do. All of us are united because of something that happened. And I am grateful to know and have met some new family because of this awful event. But this is probably the last time we're all going to be in the same room together, let's be real. So I can say, I love you all, and I feel your pain. And just God bless us all, you know? Just get through it. I had stuff wrote up. It was probably best I didn't read it out. Probably get kicked out of here. So, you know, I'll share one thing to you guys, not to you, with Xana. So I was working in North Dakota and came home, and Jazzy and Xana had taken our son Elijah and put him in a dress, makeup, and it was awful, you know. I was like, I don't know. She was funny. I told her she'd be in the movies and be somebody great one day like that. And now she is just above us as an angel with all the other beautiful kids. So let's hold that to our hearts, because this evil thing is not going to take nothing from us. You, man, I don't know what my limits are here, but I'm really struggling, dude. I am struggling, so I want to just be out in the woods with you just so I can teach you about loss and pain. I love God. I wouldn't take your life. That's up to him. But I guarantee you, you are weak. God, I would just give a moment, man, 5 minutes out in the woods. Oh, man. You're going to go to hell. I know people believe in other stuff. You're evil. There's no place for you in heaven. You took our children. You are going to suffer, man. I'm shaking because I want to reach out to you, but I hope you feel my energy, okay? Go to hell.
Next is Kara Northington, Xana's mother.
I'm Kara Northington. I am Xana Kernodle's mother. This letter is to you, really, but it's for my daughter, who was murdered by you. Today I stand before you, the man who is responsible for murdering my beautiful daughter, Xana Kernodle. My daughter was beautiful both inside and out. She possessed love for those around her and had a light so bright it will live on forever in our hearts. She brought joy and laughter to her friends, her family, and anyone in her presence. Our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, now has her in his loving arms in heaven, where she can never be harmed ever again for eternity. Because of her, I came to know my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Because of her, many will come to Christ. It is Christ who lives in me that has given me the strength to forgive you. It was of no power of my own. In return, the Lord has filled me with joy, hope, and peace that surpasses all understanding. Jesus has allowed me to forgive you for murdering my daughter without you even being sorry or asking for this. This is only possible because he who lives in me is greater than any evil in this world. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I do not fear you or even let you rent space in my head anymore. This forgiveness has released me from any and all evil you have inflicted on me and my family. It has allowed me to let our Lord deal with you. You have accepted a deal that will prevent you from receiving the death penalty. Nothing man can do to you can ever compare to the wrath of God. Inevitably, you will stand before our Lord and will have to answer to him over the sins you have committed in murdering our children. I pray you come to the end of yourself before that day. Whether you like it or not, heaven is for real and so is hell. The innocent life of Xana that you stole from myself and my family, and the destruction it has caused. I am washing my hands of you and turning you over to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, whom vengeance belongs to. In closing, I want to read a passage from the Bible, Ephesians 6, King James Version. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and then in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, that ye may be able to stand in the evil day. I'm not going to share memories of Xana or any more of the goodness of her with you, because I do not want that to be in your head. I don't want it to be in your head. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve our good memories that we have. I do pray for you. I pray that you come to the end of yourself. I pray that before this life is over, that you ask our Lord and Savior in your heart and to forgive you. I do pray for that. But after today, I wash my hands of you, and you are no longer a thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't believe the state has any other victim impact statements.
Okay. Right, state can argue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just as a housekeeping matter to start, there will be the issue of restitution. That is, the documentation is being gathered, and we ask the court would defer that for 30 days so we can present it in an orderly fashion and make sure it's comprehensive for everyone.
Any objection to leaving restitution open in 60 days? All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think it's necessary and appropriate to share for everyone here, including the court, the background that brings us in front of Your Honor today for these proceedings. As the record reflects, and as everybody in this courtroom knows, the defendant has pleaded guilty to all 5 counts charged in the indictment. Under oath before Your Honor, he has admitted that the charges against him are true. He has reassured the court that he has not been coerced or threatened to make those admissions. And Your Honor did an extraordinary job in taking the pleas back on July 2nd. We appreciate the court's discipline and insight. The defendant has also waived appeal on the multitude of rulings from this court and Your Honor's predecessor in Latah County on dozens, literally dozens of motions seeking to dismiss the case, seeking to control or limit evidence, seeking to offer evidence that would not be appropriate. And we appreciate the court's consistent rulings based on the law, based on the facts. As Your Honor will recall, on June 18th, it's just really not that long ago, we appeared before this court for arguments on what became the defendant's final motions to this court. Motion where they wanted to offer evidence suggesting that other people were responsible for the defendant's actions, and the motion seeking essentially an indefinite continuance of the trial. It was readily apparent to all of us in the courtroom from Your Honor's comments that those motions were not going to be granted. So we returned to Moscow and continued with what we had been working on for months in preparation for trial. We had no qualms about going to trial if trial was what was necessary and appropriate. The following week, after we were in court, we were approached by the defense with an inquiry about a possible plea. And I can tell the court this is the first suggestion ever that there was any consideration, because indeed, the defense had maintained from the beginning that Mr. Kohberger, the defendant, was factually innocent. It's clear that the reality of the evidence and the case that had been investigated and prepared and that we were ready to present in court became a reality. Our reaction, among other things, was to reach out to all the families. And in fact, later that week, on Thursday and Friday of that last week of June, we met with representatives by teams, virtual meetings, with representatives of all the families. And we talked about the status of the case and the upcoming trial and things that related to the trial. And we also let them know that there had been an inquiry about whether there might be an offer for a plea. And we asked the family members for their thoughts and feelings. And they were candid. And they have been candid since, and we respect that. And we understand, recognize, and acknowledge that there was a difference of opinion among representatives of the different families. We understand that. One of the challenges of this case, one of the unique things about this case is we have multiple victims, each unique unto themselves, their families and friends unique unto themselves, and all of them entitled to their opinions, all of them entitled to their thoughts. Over the following weekend, our prosecution team, very skilled attorneys who were personally as well as professionally deeply invested in this case, met. And we talked, and the decision was reached. Well, to start with, were there to be any sort of plea offer or discussion, there's only one possibility. And that would be for the defendant to plead guilty straight up to all charges. There would be no bargaining about counts. There would be no bargaining about reduced sentences. And so we made the proposal to the defense that if the defendant was willing to plead guilty up front to all 5 counts as charged and waive appeal of the court's myriad decisions during the past 2.5+ years on all these motions that would have consumed years, if not decades, of time in the future. By the end of the weekend, we were notified the defendant was prepared to plead guilty as charged and factually acknowledge his responsibility in court for these horrible crimes. Obviously, those discussions and negotiations were confidential. And as Your Honor noted, I believe, that was necessarily so, because if the defendant had decided not to plead guilty, it would have been devastating to our jury pool for there to be public information that there had been consideration by either party to a plea resolution. And protecting the prospective integrity of a trial after so many years was paramount. So, the end of the weekend came. We notified the victims' families of what had occurred. I recognize and acknowledge personally, and I respect the fact that of these fine, suffering people here, not everybody agreed with the decision we make. I accept that. It's my responsibility in the end. I recognize that that's the duty of the office that I hold. So now, it is time for the judicial system to impose final judgment and close the door on this chapter of these tragedies. As the court is aware, by the agreement of the parties, it is the state's prayer. Perhaps have the Elmo police turned on. Thank you. That on count 1, the felony burglary, that the court sentenced the defendant to the maximum period of 10 years fixed in the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction. Then on count 2, that the court sentenced the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Maddie Mogen. On count 3, that the court sentenced the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Kaylee Goncalves. On count 4, that the court sentenced the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Xana Kernodle. On count 5, that the court sentenced the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Ethan Chapin. And the state further prays that these sentences be ordered to run consecutively, back to back, not at the same time, to recognize and respect the unique individuality of each of these beautiful young people whose lives were taken brutally and for no reason. And hopefully now, as we have heard earlier this morning, it is time to afford the families and the friends and the community and the state of Idaho and the nation and the world to move forward. We can't undo, and we can never undo, the horror of what occurred on the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022 at 1122 King Street in Moscow, Idaho. For a long time, the presiding district judge in Latah County was John Stegner, who eventually became a member and a justice of the Idaho Supreme Court. And Justice Stegner often observed that even God cannot change the past. But everyone in this room has the ability to take themselves forward. And we want the judicial system to afford them the opportunity today to do that. From today forward, our memories should be focused on these innocent victims whose lives were taken, on their families, on their friends, on the community. The court has heard discussion, talk today, reminiscences today about a special family that our victims shared, not just their natural, legal, and biological families, not just their university family within their sororities, for example. But this family. This is the picture taken on November 12th, 2022, of the special family of 1122 King Road. And you can see all 6 of these dynamic, vibrant, loving, special, innocent faces taken together just across the street from their residence, and barely 12 hours before 4 of them would be brutally murdered in their sleep. They've been described consistently as being bright, caring, vivacious, with futures we can only imagine now. But they were, and they remain, a special family that I think we should all recognize and appreciate. So it's time to move forward. There have been a number of statements directed specifically at the defendant today. I have one last thought. After Your Honor imposes judgment and sentences the defendant to spend the rest of his life in prison, in other words, sentence the defendant to die in prison, he's going to stand up in the belly chains and leg irons that he's wearing today, and he's going to be escorted into the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction. And the door will close behind him forever. That is the closure that we seek, that all of these people, these loving friends and family deserve, so that we can move forward. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, does the defense have evidence to present today?
No evidence.
All right. Does defense wish to make argument today?
Runner, we do not wish to make arguments. Mr. Kohberger, along with his legal team, is prepared for the court to enter judgment.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, you have an opportunity to make a statement if you wish to. I take it you are declining.
I respectfully decline.
Well. Please. All right, let me start this morning by acknowledging and thanking those that have come here today in support of their loved ones, and I appreciate your courage and your strength. And I hope that you are able to move on as best as possible. Thank counsel for the professionalism that they've exhibited throughout this case. It has been my great honor to preside in this case and to help bring, to the extent possible, some resolution and hopefully justice to this case. During the quiet morning hours of November 13, 2022, a faceless coward breached the tranquility of 6 beautiful young people and senselessly slaughtered them, 4 of them. Who committed this unspeakable evil was unknown for several weeks, but due to the killer's incompetence and outstanding police work by numerous local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, the person that slithered through that sliding glass door at 1122 King Road now stands before the world and this court unmasked. This unfathomable and senseless act of evil has caused immeasurable pain and loss. No parent should ever have to bury their child. This is the greatest tragedy that can be inflicted upon a person. Parents who took their children to college in a truck filled with moving boxes had to bring them home in hearses lined with coffins. The loss this killer inflicted was not just the death of these people's children, siblings, grandchildren, as we've heard today. It has ripped a hole in their soul, destroying a special part of their very essence. Any person who is a parent defines themselves foremost as such. It is their existence and purpose of being. And it has been stolen from these parents. None of us have experienced the loss these victims have in the unspeakable way that they have. And therefore, none of us can, nor should we, question the way in which they have handled their loss. Whether that be in private mourning, removed as far as possible from this media circus, or in front of a camera demanding retribution with the loudest megaphone. I've listened intently to the stories and pain that have been shared today, with great awe at the courage and resilience of the surviving family members of those wonderful children. I've listened also to the surviving roommates, both in person and through their friends. And I can't think of how, frankly, courageous they have been despite the hell that they have faced by uncaring people who have come up with all kinds of crazy theories about two kids simply being kids. The parents, siblings, and other family members who have spoken today are designated as victims in our legal system. But going forward, I hope that they can shed that label, as it gives too much power to the evil that condemned them to that role. They are and should be known as survivors, fighters, and foremost as witnesses to the tremendous lives of value and unbounded promise of these four young people. But those speaking today and those who did not speak, but who carry this same burden, this same loss, now carry forward the memories of these now perpetually young people, these forever children. These survivors carry the responsibility of ensuring that the voices of these children, Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan, are never forgotten, and the positive impacts that they have had on so many lives are never minimized, and that the love they shared, the light that they shined onto others, is forever celebrated. As we sit here today, this case is ending, and we are now certain who committed these unspeakable acts of evil, but we don't know, and what we may never know is why. I share the desire expressed by others to understand the why. But upon reflection, it seems to me, and this is just my own opinion, that by continuing to focus on why, we continue to give Mr. Kohberger relevance. We give him agency and we give him power. The need to know what is inherently not understandable makes us dependent upon the defendant to provide us with a reason, and that gives him the spotlight, the attention, and the power he appears to crave. Yet even if I could force him to speak, which legally I cannot, how could anyone ever be assured that what he speaks is the truth? Do we really believe, after all of this, he's capable of speaking the truth or of giving up something of himself to help the very people whose lives he destroyed? Rather, I suspect the so-called reason would be dished out in enticing, self-serving, and aggrandizing, untruthful bits, leaving people wanting more information, more insight, and thus enhancing even further the power he seeks to hold. Even if we could get truthful insight into his why, I suspect it would not in any way quench one's thirst for actually understanding why in the first instance. Because there is no reason for these crimes that could approach anything resembling rationality. No conceivable reason could make any sense. And in the end, the more we struggle to seek explanation for the unexplainable, the more we try to extract a reason, the more power and control we give to him. In my view, the time has now come to end Mr. Kohberger's 15 minutes of fame. It's time that he be consigned to the ignominy and isolation of perpetual incarceration. I know there has been concern about him collaborating on books or movies or other media projects, and I truly hope that someone does not stoop to affording him this spotlight that he desires in the name of clicks, royalties, or profits. While criminal behavioralists should study him away from the spotlight in an attempt to prevent other would-be killers from acting on their worst impulses, there should be no need for that to spill over into the public eye. The great Idaho jurist Edward Lodge was known for trying to find something positive about every person he ever sentenced. And with over a half a century as a trial judge, that was a lot of people. This was often challenging, and I recall in one case he said that the best he could come up with was the defendant had good penmanship. Truth be told, I'm unable to come up with anything redeeming about Mr. Kohberger because his grotesque acts of evil have buried and hidden anything that might have been good or intrinsically human about him. His actions have made him the worst of the worst. Even in pleading guilty, he is giving nothing hinting of remorse or redemption, nothing suggesting even a recognition or understanding, let alone regret for the pain that he has caused. And therefore, I will not attempt to speak about him further, other than to simply sentence him so that he is forever removed from civilized society. And accordingly, based upon his conduct and based upon the record before this court, recognizing the standards that govern this court's sentencing decisions as set forth in State v. Toohill, I hereby sentence Mr. Kohberger as follows. On count 1, burglary, 10 years fixed, 0 years indeterminate. I also impose a fine of $50,000. Count 2, first-degree murder of Madison Mogan. I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. On count 3, for first-degree murder of Kaylee Goncalves, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the victim of the family, or to the family of the victim, pardon me. On count 4, for the first-degree murder of Xana Kernodle, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. On count 5, for the first-degree murder of Ethan Chapin, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. The sentences on counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 shall run consecutively to one another. Restitution will be left open for 60 days. Defendant will be required to submit a DNA sample and a right thumb print impression to the Department of Corrections and comply with the DNA Database Act. I remand the defendant to the custody of the Idaho State Board of Corrections for to be imprisoned in an appropriate facility in execution of the sentence where he will remain until he dies. Though you have waived your right to appeal, you do have a right to file a notice of appeal, and any such appeal must be filed within 42 days of the date of the written judgment, which will be entered shortly hereafter. Though the appeal, you should be aware, may be deemed a violation of the plea agreement, and so I certainly suggest you discuss that with counsel if that is your desire. I ask the media and public present to allow the families to be escorted out first before they leave. Again, thank you to everyone for your stories today. I am strengthened by them, and I am encouraged by your humanity and strength, and God bless you. We're adjourned.
Incredible day in court in Boise, Idaho, not far from where these crimes were committed. in Moscow, Idaho, were 4 college students with everything in front of them, happy lives, beautiful friendships, boyfriends, girlfriends, families who love them, went to college one day, and for some reason, as the judge points out, that we'll never fully understand, had their lives snuffed out at 4:12 in the morning by that thing sitting there at counsel's table wearing orange, Bryan Kohberger. He didn't speak at all except for the one line when the court said, "Mr. Kohberger, do you wish to make a statement?" And like the good little schoolboy, he said, "I respectfully decline," still looking for some sort of pat on the top of the head, still acting like the PhD student who could get an A for his classroom behavior and trying to fool us into thinking he's respectful in any way. Here's that moment.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, you have an opportunity to make a statement if you wish to. I take it you are declining.
I respectfully decline.
What's that about? Who does he think he's fooling? What a joke this man is. I use that term very loosely. The judge sentencing him as expected to the maximum on all counts, 10 years in prison on the burglary count, life without, well, he didn't say without parole. We'll talk to Matt about that in a minute, but life for Maddie, life for Kaylee, life for Xana, life for Ethan to run consecutively, meaning one after the other, along with $50,000 in fines for each victim and a $5,000 civil penalty to the family. This is the end, technically, guys. My panel's back with me, Phil Holloway, Howard Blum, and Matt Murphy. This is the end. I don't know. I guess it feels unsatisfying. Matt, you've been through this so many times. Does it always feel unsatisfying?
Well, it's always a little anticlimactic when there's a plea, Megyn. I think that if this was a sentencing after a jury trial, we might feel a little bit different because we would have really seen the exhaustion of all the evidence that was available. We would have seen and heard every detail of this investigation. And I've said it before, but kudos to the police here. They really are the heroes on this, from the local police department to the state troopers of Idaho, to the FBI. They really did an outstanding job. And I hope people remember that. The only reason why we had this sentencing is because of the hard work of those men and women. And I was really grateful to see the family members acknowledge them in that. Even Mr. Goncalves, as angry as he was, he gave a shout out to the police, which I thought was really dignified. But I'm struck by this judge. It's important for people to remember that all judges are not created equal. And this Judge Hippler did a fantastic job. I thought that his comments were exactly on point. And I think that he really spoke to all of us when he said, the more we wonder why in something that he would never tell the truth on and is really unexplainable anyway, the more we continue to give him power. Now, everybody wants to know why because we want to prevent it. We want to see it coming. We want to know what to look for to prevent the next Bryan Kohberger. But I thought that he was outstanding. And remember, he did not have to impose that. This was discretionary with the court. That was one of my criticisms of Thompson at the beginning. He surrendered that power to sentence to the, they call it fixed life in Idaho, which is life without possibility of parole.
Okay.
The court imposed
Fixed
that
life.
upon its own discretion. So hats off to the court. I thought that judge really did an outstanding job today, and he did exactly the right thing. And I thought his comments are something that we should all think about.
It was a new perspective setter because we're also unsatisfied with him not having to explain why. But it was a good reminder of like, who cares? Who cares? What could he possibly say that would satisfy any of us? This cretin, this human excrement sitting there. I don't know what happened to him, but he doesn't seem human to me. He seems otherworldly, and I don't mean that in a complimentary way. He just seems like something, frankly, that needs to be snuffed out. But the next best thing, Howard, is to have him rot in prison for the rest of his life. And I'm picturing the door closing behind him, as the judge said.
I'm from the set that finds this deeply unsatisfying. There were two diametrically opposed positions presented today. One was by the Goncalves family that raised questions, specific questions. They wanted answers. the judge, in effect, said, let's move on. He said that literally. Let's move on. We can forget about it. Well, I think it's too soon to forget about it. Yes, we'll never know a rational reason why he did it, but there still are other questions remaining. Where is the knife? How did he cover up his tracks? I would like more answers. I think the people of Idaho, the families, and all of us, the public, should have been presented with more answers.
You know, I did think it was a little odd, Phil, that the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, spent a good chunk of his closing remarks trying to talk about how he notified the families of the pending plea. It was like he was trying to rehabilitate himself in response to Steve Goncalves' complaints about the way the plea was handled. I just thought that was totally inappropriate. It reminded me of the judge when Kohberger, pleaded guilty, making it all about the phone calls he'd received from people who are out. Like, stop making it about yourself. This isn't about you rehabbing you.
I've been pretty critical about this prosecution team, not for the quality of the case they put together, because as others have correctly mentioned, they did a great job along with the law enforcement who investigated this case. But from a PR perspective, I think that they really dropped the ball. And to see an extension of that today, it was almost like you saw a little bit of grandstanding. This is there's no jury present. It's just a judge. This is a non-jury proceeding. So it was a bit over the top in terms of theatrics. And as you mentioned, it seemed to be aimed at rehabilitating their own image for those of us in the public who are being somewhat critical. They, in my view, should have had all of the families in agreement on this plea deal, or there would be no deal. That's just my opinion. That's how I would have played it if I had been the prosecutor, because that would have perhaps left us with perhaps some little bit more increased measure of satisfaction. We're all left unsatisfied right now. Think about how the families must feel as they're leaving the courthouse. But had there been a trial and a sentencing hearing with evidence and aggravation, we might have known a lot more, because as we go forward today, we're all left with these lingering questions of why. Why did this have to happen? Why did it happen? And because I think the decisions the prosecutor made, we're going to be left with these answers. And let me just point this one thing out. This court today rendered a judgment. There can be a judgment in any case. But when we speak of what justice is, was justice delivered? Justice is one of those words that's incapable of being defined, and it's in the eye of the beholder. But I would submit that there is no amount of justice, whatever it may be, that can possibly apply to this case, because the magnitude of the destruction, not only of the individuals' lives who were taken, but the destruction that is left in the wake of this evil act, is not capable of receiving adequate justice, in my view. So there's, I think, always going to be some measure of dissatisfaction, because justice just can't address this kind of evil.
That's so well said. It captures what I'm feeling right now. When I listened to, for example, Kaylee's sister speak, I felt like, yes, this is what I want. I want to hear him humiliated. I'm enjoying that piece. But everything else has just left me with this empty feeling of like, why? Not demanding an explanation, but just the human evil, the evil that walks amongst us as human beings, and the snuffing out of these 4 lives with nothing but promise in front of them. And Steve Goncalves was right. They did a very good job, those families, of getting out the videos of those 4 kids and helping us get to know them, Howard, and fall in love with the 4 of them and their huge 1,000-watt smiles and the joy they clearly felt on the Idaho campus, and the football games they celebrated, and the dance parties. The one sister mentioned, these were jubilant, really happy, lovely kids, just American kids trying to get an education and have a good time. And he resented it without him saying anything. We know, you've written about it. He couldn't stand their happiness.
I mean, Steve, to my mind, is a hero throughout this whole thing. He refused to just move on. Everyone else, the judge, the prosecutor, they kept on repeating that phrase, it's time to move on, it's time to move on. Well, the reality is, none of these families are ever going to be able to move on. I don't think the town of Moscow will be able to move on. And I think we should have been given some answers. The sister Alivea raised the questions. The questions were, as you pointed out, very similar to the questions Kohberger included in his master's dissertation that he distributed at prisons. He should be asked those questions. We should get those answers.
That's the other thing. The judge is like, well, I really hope no journalist or, publishing house gives him the opportunity to give an interview or write a book. First of all, he's not allowed to make money on a book. That's illegal. But that's not to say, I guess, one couldn't be published and where he wouldn't get paid. And he's going to get the knock on the door from journalists up and down the spectrum. And Catherine Rumsfeld or whatever her last name, I'm forgetting her last name. Thank you, Ramsland. His former master's professor at DeSales University has said she'd like to study him. He'll love all of that. Look, that's just human nature. People want to study serial killers. It's a natural thing we want to understand. But I will say to this Judge Hippler, you know what would have made it slightly less likely is if your DA required him to really cop to the crime and explain himself at this sentencing hearing, Matt. Like him allowing this defendant to remain an enigma, to not say anything, is only going to make the press and everyone else more interested in him.
Yeah, I want to add on to that a little bit, Megyn. And I want to be fair here because it's a tough job. You're the elected DA. You got a lot going on. You have the families. There are good reasons. Look, when it comes to appellate issues, things like that, all of that is real, and it gives some finality. I hate the word closure. He used it. I think that's a trope. These families, like Howard pointed out, there's no closure for them. But so that said, I want to be fair to the prosecutor. However, that little speech that he gave, that performative aspect of that, first of all, the seminal case in the United States, happens to be out of Idaho. It's a Sonia Sotomayor 2019 opinion from the United States Supreme Court called Garza versus Idaho. Thompson made this big point of saying he waived his appellate rights. The case in the United States is out of Idaho that says you can't actually ever waive your appellate rights. So that's not real. And it is the law that he can still, as the court pointed out at the end, you got 42 days to file your notice of appeal. It might breach the plea because that essentially is a contract, but now it's post-sentencing. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see him file notice of appeal, and you can do that. And that's for direct appeal. We still have the entire habeas process, which is another way to challenge a conviction. And Thompson gave that up with his plea. He did. He knows he did. And look, there's good reasons for, good reasons against. I'm with Philip here. I wouldn't have given him this deal. Death penalty cases are hard. That goes with the job. Dealing with family members who disagree, also that's a part of the job. But another thing that really does disturb me a little bit on this is there's a saying, Megyn, so goes California, goes the rest of the nation. We've all heard that before. There are huge movements and legislative pushes in the state of California to eliminate LWOP, or life without possibility of parole, as a sentence. 40 years is a long time. And the last time we talked about this, I said, I think he's going to get a parole hearing one day. And under current Idaho law, he will not. The way the court did this, they call it fixed life. Almost every other state calls it life without possibility of parole. I think it's North Carolina calls it life without mercy. Every state has its own.
Hold that thought. I want to hear the end
of
this, but I'm about to hit a hard break on SiriusXM. We'll continue on pod and youtube.com/Megyn Kelly. SiriusXMers, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you over at YouTube and on pod. And we're back, Matt. Go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah. So the DA's sort of statement that he waived his appellate rights is just he did on paper, but it doesn't actually mean anything. He can still appeal. It may be a tougher appellate road. He can still do a direct appeal. He just has to accuse his defense lawyers of ineffective assistance of counsel. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that. And then, of course, 40 years is an awful long time for them to get an opportunity to switch the law. And look, the Menendez brothers got life without possibility of parole in California, and we know what just happened there. There have been significant legislative actions that allow people with life without possibility of parole sentences in other states to now get them. So that was, he stood up, he said that. It sounded awful good. However, there's a lot more to it, and I hope it's the end. I hope him going away and the door closing and all that stuff is the end, but legally it's really not.
Phil?
Let me add something to that if I can. I'm glad that we're talking about ineffective assistance of counsel. This, of course, being a Sixth Amendment right that you have under the U.S. Constitution, and each state has their own. All he would really need to do is say, look, we had identified 4 other people, and we were prepared to blame them at trial as being the real killer, okay? But my lawyers talked me out of going forward with the trial, even though I wanted to say that other people committed this crime. And then you've got
that could really happen.
Habeas.
Just to interrupt you for one quick second, that really could happen because Howard was reporting on this leading up to the trial that Ann Taylor was jumping up and down, seemingly wanting him to plead this out, and Kohberger. There was talk about whether she'd have to try to get him declared incompetent or do something around his alleged autism to try to force this plea deal on him. Keep going, Phil.
Yeah, so so he can raise this issue on collateral attack on what we call a habeas kind of an appeal, and he's not essentially, I think, breaching the plea deal because he's not necessarily appealing any of the pretrial rulings made in the case. He's saying that my rights were violated today during this sentencing process because my lawyers didn't do their job. Now, I'm not saying that's the case necessarily, but that's the argument that could be made. So for the prosecutor to sit there and say for everybody's benefit, I guess, that there's just not going to be any appeal was a little bit disingenuous, and it certainly doesn't reflect the law that exists in the United States, as was correctly pointed out. And it also, just to wrap up this point, if you're going to file a motion saying to the judge, look, we want to blame 3 or 4 or 5 other people for this, and we've got some evidence of it, you better have really, really good evidence, because when that motion fails and then you're on the eve of trial and your client figures out, okay, the limelight is over, it's time to put up or shut up, and we're at the foot of the cross, you look like a fool for bringing this motion saying we've got evidence that 4 or 5 other people may have been the guilty party here, and then you just kind of immediately switch gear to admit under oath that no, this individual client did in fact commit this crime exactly as alleged. So I'm like, why do you even try to go down that road unless you've got really, really solid evidence of it?
I think it's too kind.
Can I add to that? I'm sorry.
I think it's too kind to say you look like a fool. I mean, that's something pernicious and malicious. They put 4 names into that document. The document and the motion, it's been redacted. But someday this might very well come out. Those 4 people will be branded for life as possible suspects, possible killers, and yet the judge said there's no evidence. That was a very pernicious act on the part of Ann Taylor. I think it's unforgivable.
Well, let me add to that just one other point. That you heard a lot of people reference it. The DA referenced it. The judge referenced it. Some of the family members mentioned the media attention. And in this very interesting Amazon Prime documentary on this case that just hit, forgive me, I can't remember the name of it. It's about the Idaho 4, but it's on Amazon Prime right now. One Night in Idaho. Thank you, my team. They talk a lot about the online crime sleuth community and how rabid they've been, and frankly, irresponsible some have really been in reporting on this case and pointing the finger at anyone and everyone and sort of dragging innocent young men who are just standing there into this case as alleged suspects and terrorizing, the other roommates and some of the friends. And like the one guy who was just the sober driver at the local fraternity where Ethan Chapin's, I think he was a member there. His name was dragged through the mud and so on. So they did make a point about, all of those media people and how irresponsible they were. I mean, I think that's a legitimate point. I can't remember why I'm raising this, but that's why, because now Ann Taylor, she puts in a document these 4 other names that eventually is going to go out there. And what do you think that online community, the ones who are irresponsible, they're not all, is going to do with those names? I literally am still getting texts from random people some I know, some I don't, rejecting this, telling me he either didn't do it or he didn't do it alone. I mean, these are smart people who just aren't accepting this because of Ann Taylor. You're right, Howard. Those 4 people are about to get their names dragged through the mud even more because she irresponsibly threw them out there. Go ahead, Howard, and then I'll go to you, Matt.
Well, I mean, as a journalist, you don't really move on. I mean, I listened to the proceedings today, and I heard one thing that I never heard before, that there was a weapon used on Kaylee. Now,
two weapons.
Well, the knife, and then he had something else in his hand.
Yeah.
I think the sister said.
She said, what was the second weapon?
We heard testimony about a vacuum cleaner. Dylan had said that a vacuum cleaner, she thought she saw a vacuum cleaner in his hand. Did he bring a vacuum cleaner in? Did he hit her with a vacuum cleaner, savagely beat her? The father said her cheekbones were broken. Is that how he was able to get out without leaving a trail? These are questions I, as a journalist, and I think the Goncalves family too, wanted answers. And I don't know if we should be moving on. After 3.5 years.
Before I toss it to you, Matt, I do want to play a soundbite on that. Steve Gonzalez spoke to Ashley Banfield and did fill in some of the details around what he'd been told about Kaylee's murder. She was on the top floor with Maddie Mogen, believed to be the main target of the attack. Here it is, Sot 1.
People so angry at what was happening in that courtroom that they would literally pick up their phone and call us and say, this is what's on Bryan's phone. This is what he was searching. This individual was sexually motivated. I don't care what Thompson said.
Coming out of hearings, there would be people who would call you and say, I don't like what's happening in that courtroom. I know what's on his phone. I know. What did you learn from those phone calls without divulging who it was who called?
Just weird porn fetishes, but 2 of the fetishes were in that room. Drunk, passed out girls and gagging girls. And those are 2 things that were part of that crime scene. For Thompson to say that there was no sexual assault, of course there wasn't. He didn't have enough time. Somebody came up there.
That was additional color, but he also did talk about how it was clear Kaylee had been beaten. I think that he said her nose had been broken. So clearly there had been some sort of a fight, some sort of an altercation. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I think that hits on exactly what we were discussing last time, is the use of that word, that there was no sexual component. I think that was really inappropriate by the DA, because you can't get into Kohberger's head. And we've heard those rumors consistently that Mr. Goncalves was just talking about there, that there were porn searches that were found on the computers and phones. And I can tell you, Megyn, 4 years in sexual assault and 17 in homicide, unless they get rid of the computers, there's always porn. There's always something on there, especially when you're dealing with people that are motivated by sexual predation. So I think that was a very poor choice of words by Thompson in the original plea. He didn't repeat that again today. But look, one of the things that he did say, he talked about we didn't reduce the sentences. What did he say? He said no bargaining about reduced sentences. It's like, dude, you gave him the biggest reduced sentence. You came off death. I mean, I don't know what he was talking about there, unless he's referring to the specific counts. And sorry, again, I don't want to be overly critical here, but that's called pleading to the sheet. That's something that happens in every courtroom every day by prosecutors. There's nothing heroic about that. It's like, you want us to come up the biggest potential sentence in a state that might actually execute him? Of course he's going to plead to the sheet. So that I thought was really... That was designed, that language, I think, was designed for the general public, because there's a lot of lawyers who practice criminal law, I guarantee, across America, that were kind of rolling their eyes a little bit in that. And again, guys got a tough job. There are advantages, certainly, to taking a plea. My Rodney Alcala case, like we talked about, I did the 3rd version of that. It was reversed twice. He was convicted twice, sentenced to death twice. I did the 3rd trial, and it was brutal on the families. All of that stuff is real. But again, we talked about this. I want to know what changed behind the scenes, other than just Kohberger coming and want to make a deal. And it sounds like nothing.
That's it. And Bill Thompson not wanting to try the case. I did find the comment that Steve Gonsalves made to People Magazine. People Magazine wrote up an interview he gave to the Today Show, where he said, he and Christy Gonsalves said the coroner gave the parents a breakdown of the wounds 21-year-old Kaylee suffered. Quote, she had definitely been stabbed multiple times and they kind of described it as a drowning that can occur. But she did say gagging. Kohberger struck her in the face. Christy Goncalves added, Kaylee had a broken nose, septal hematomas, asphyxial injuries, and defense wounds on her arms. She was stabbed many, many times. How many, we don't know. And that's where you come in, Howard, where you're saying Steve Goncalves asked you if you could find out that he's relying on you.
They're still trying to find things out. And today they revealed for the first time, at least, that there was perhaps something else in the hands that they used to beat Kaylee. I'd like to hear more about that, but instead we've been told it's time to move on. I think that's wishful thinking.
Here's the sister, Alivea, in a series of questions she posed to Bryan Kohberger, directly raising some of these points.
Some of these might be familiar, so sit up straight when I talk to you. How was your life right before you murdered my sisters? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your apartment? Please detail what you were thinking and feeling at this time. Why did you choose my sisters? Before making your move, did you approach my sisters? Detail what you were thinking and feeling. Before leaving their home, is there anything else you did? Where is the murder weapon? The clothes you wore that night? What did you bring into the house with you? What was the second weapon you used on Kaylee? What were Kaylee's last words? If you were really smart, do you think you'd be here right now? What's it like needing this much attention just to feel real?
Oh, I mean, as someone who's put these psychopaths in jail, Matt, how do you think that made him feel?
Well, look, every family member, Megyn, winds up landing, anybody that goes through something like this, they initially land somewhere on a spectrum between just supreme grief and supreme anger. And a lot of them will sort of change on that scale over the course of the proceedings and the course of time. I actually really thought that was incredibly powerful for her to do that. And I think that's the purpose of a victim impact statement, because that young woman, Alivea, will be able to go through the rest of her life knowing that he had to sit there and listen. And again, when we're talking about the psychopath, they have no capacity for empathy, but their narcissism is off the charts. So to have as you pointed out, Megyn, a very attractive young woman, Alivea, speak to him like that in a setting where he had to sit and listen to him, that stung, because that will impact his sense of grandiosity. And she really just laid him low. I mean, I was cheering for her as she was doing that, taking notes. That was awesome. And I think that if there's anything when he gets on that bus to go to whatever prison they send him to, that's going to be echoing around in his mind, it's going to be the words of Alivea Goncalves.
I have to say, I thought it was a courageous act, too, because he is a quadruple murderer. And I mean, I just can't continue to think back to his first question when he got arrested, which was, is anyone else in custody? And so, there is at least a question mark lingering over the case about whether somebody helped him in some way. And I just thought that's very brave of her to be so provocative and antagonistic toward who we know is a man who's a quadruple murderer and has zero empathy, and she's a young woman. I mean, that the piece of it, her testimonial is the one that everybody's going to remember. It was extraordinary, but it was important also to have the full panoply of emotion, Phil, because we also saw what this thing did to, for example, Dylan Mortensen. I mean, and Dylan's so interesting. She's one of the two surviving roommates. There was Bethany, who was in the basement, who didn't hear a thing. And then there was Dylan. And Dylan showed up and spoke her statement herself. And she's been at the center of the storm since these murders happened because she saw him. He got into that house, we believe, around 4:12 a.m. He left within 12 to 18 minutes at most later. And he, upon leaving, passed Dylan Mortensen in the hallway. She didn't know what she was seeing. She's the one who described him as wearing some sort of like a balaclava or a mask with bushy eyebrows. Howard pointing out, she later, Vicky Ward reported that she believed Dylan did. He was holding some sort of a vacuum cleaner upon exiting. We've never heard her. We've never She hasn't given an interview. We haven't heard anything from her. She shows up today, and that woman's anguish was palpable. It was a reminder that he took 4 lives, but in some ways he ruined far more than 4. I'm just going to play a soundbite from her, and then you can take it, Phil. Here's part of the Dylan Mortensen impact statement montage. It's SOT 21.
My nervous system never got the message that it is over, and it won't let me forget what he did to them. He is a hollow vessel, something less than human, a body without empathy, without remorse. He chose destruction. He chose evil. He may have taken so much from me, but he will never get to take my voice. He will never take the memories I had with them. He will never erase the love we shared, the laughs we had, or the way they made me feel seen and whole. Those things are mine. They are sacred, and he will never touch them.
Oh, both she and the other roommate, Phil, testifying that for a year after this happened, they had to sleep in the bed with their parents.
You know, to take someone's life, obviously, is one of the worst things that you could ever do to someone. But I think you could make the argument that doing to her what Kohberger did to her, it may be even worse, because the people who have passed away, they're not hurting or suffering in the physical sense anymore, but she is, and she's got to carry that with her for the rest of her natural life. And those of us who are parents, like in my case of a soon-to-be college-age child, you know, this is the worst nightmare for any parent. You want what's best for your family. You want what's best for your kids. You want your kids to go out into the world and succeed and to be happy. And that's the most important thing. You want your kids to be happy, but there's no amount of counseling or no therapy that can ever help undo what Kohberger did to her and can make her happy. And so, you know, this all goes back to part of the problem that I have with this plea deal in the first place. We're just left with so many questions that might help some of these people move forward in at least maybe a little bit more satisfactory fashion. The prosecutor had every reason, I think, to go forward with a trial. Not all the questions would have been answered, but a lot of them would. We would not be talking
like how many
necessarily
stab wounds?
About or how many stab wounds, or was he carrying a vacuum cleaner? We would know the answers to a lot of this if there had been a trial. And maybe in the weeks and months and years to come, maybe the families will be provided with the evidence that they didn't see at the trial that didn't happen, and maybe they'll be able to provide it to the public. Maybe journalists will be able to get their hands on some of this stuff now that the gag order has been released. But remember, it's still all in the possession, custody, and control of the prosecution, and it's really going to be up to them how to get this information out into the public if they're willing to do it at all. And I think they probably have some things that they just, to protect themselves, they don't want the public to find out about. I think that there was some hesitancy about the prosecution. That's the nicest word I can think of right now, some hesitancy to move forward with the trial. I don't know if it's they didn't feel they were capable or they were somehow scared of going to trial, but they certainly seemed to jump on Kohberger's really the one that made the offer and say, look, I'll plead guilty if you take death off the table. And it's almost like Kohberger's team is making the plea offer and the prosecutor accepting his terms. And so, they
prosecution
jumped
was
at that pretty
relieved
quickly. Yeah, they act like they're the ones that made some kind of plea deal. I see it the other way around. I see Kohberger made the plea deal and the prosecutor accepted that.
You're so right. Go ahead, Howard.
That's exactly right. I mean, and then for the prosecution, for Bill Thompson to talk about, we'll move on, the door is closed, the judge said that. Well, we all heard Dylan Mortensen's statements. No one is moving on. This is going to linger forever. And only thing that's going to happen is the possibility of getting answers to specific questions. Well, that's going to be a lot harder now. I think the families and the citizens of Idaho and the public have been disserved by what was done in the courtroom today.
now was the time. It's creepy in the movie that I keep referencing, One Night in Idaho. They have a very interesting segment with the women who ran one of these public chat groups about the murders. These two women run multiple true crime blogs, and they added this one after the murders. And this was the forum into which Papa Roger appeared, posting his theories about the crime. It's clearly Bryan Kohberger, and they walk you through his posts, which really kind of gave up the game. First of all, the photo, like the sort of icon that's used to represent Papa Roger, looks just like Bryan Kohberger. I mean, identical. And second of all, his posts know way more than any civilian who didn't commit this crime should have known long prior to the release of that police affidavit, which had the details of the crime. I mean, he was already speculating about, he knew it was a knife. He speculated that they found the knife sheath. He asked some of those same weird questions that he asked in that questionnaire. He wanted to know, what do you think was in the mind of the killer when he walked into the room? They were it was more than I'd ever heard from the Papa Roger account as these two women who ran it went through his questioning. And then as soon as Bryan Kohberger was arrested, dried up. Papa Roger never posted again, which tells me he wants attention. He loves reveling in the crime, Matt. He seems to have been getting off on it because at that point he was getting away with the crime. So why would a killer like this, who had as of then gotten away with it, be so provocative to be making these posts in a public online crime forum?
Well, that goes back to Jack the Ripper, right, Megyn? It's like that person wrote to the police, and they think that those letters came from the actual killer. We saw that in the Zodiac Killer too. That speaks to the narcissism, the arrogance, and the grandiosity of the great American psychopath, or even, outside of America. It's the mindset of these guys. And
it's like I'm thinking of the thumbs up photo after the murders, Matt. As you say, the grandiosity. It's his selfie with the thumbs up. Like, yeah, he's celebrating himself. Keep going.
He looks like a vampire in that too. And look, Megyn, that photo, there's a very common thing, and it comes from a good place, I think, with most people. But when they're considering death versus life in prison, one of the things you hear very commonly is people will go, well, the worst thing I can imagine is if I was in a cell and I had to think about what I did every single day. That's imposing humanity onto the mind of the psychopath. They don't think that way. It's a mistake. It comes from it's almost like psychological projection. We think about ourselves and we think about how we have the capacity for guilt. They don't think that way. And the arrogance of posting stuff to an online chat room, I mean, it's a modern version of the same thing. And these guys, I hate to say it, but they just don't experience remorse like other people. And that's why I really loved the comments of Alivea today, because that kind of stuff is biting. That kind of stuff.
Well, Matt, that was the other thing she got to. She said, so Jack the Ripper was never caught, but Bryan Kohberger was caught. And she got on him like, how are you so stupid? Like, mockingly, like, did you really think you're going to be able to cover up your Amazon purchase of the knife by using a gift card? It was so diminishing.
Look, I love that. I love that. I loved her. You're basic. You're nothing. She read everything that she could get her hands on, written by Bryan Kohberger. That is a very intelligent woman who wanted to sting him, and she did. I guarantee that stuff hurt today.
Okay, now speaking of stinging, speaking of my friend Ashley Banfield, she had on a guy, his name is Larry Levine, and he's a former federal inmate and prison consultant, and he's literally written the book that people read when they get sentenced to prison on like how to deal with prison. So she had him on not long ago and asked him some questions about what's going to happen now to Bryan Kohberger. This was after understanding he was pleading guilty. And listen here to SOT 16.
Remember that these people in there, none of them, well, I shouldn't say none of them, a great deal of them are not mentally stable anyway. So that's highly possible. Maybe somebody will shiv him or something. That is part of jailhouse justice. I've seen people get stuck before. I've been in 3 different prison riots, so I've seen all this shit. But I predict within a year or less that he's either going to be dead or he's going to be physically injured in some way. Then they'll transport him, take him to a real hospital. and they'll let him stay there and get well and all this bullshit. Finally, they'll move him back over to the prison, back to Boise, and he'll be in protective custody for the rest of his life because they won't be able to put him in general population.
Now, Matt, you've been saying he's going to go to special custody right away. Do we know that?
I guarantee they're gonna put him in. It's called PC, or they're gonna make him a total sep or a total separation. I guaranteed. He's been in that status almost certainly the entire time since his arrest because of the notoriety of the case. It'll only increase today. But what a sad statement of the American system of justice when we're all here and we are hoping that not that we're hoping for it, but that people are calling for prisoners. Like, we need dirtbag inmates to achieve justice in a case like this. It speaks to that unsatisfied feeling you were talking about earlier. I think that a lot of people across America are cheering for dirtbag prisoners to carry out what the American justice system couldn't. And back to Philip's point, the idea that the DA kind of blinked on this, that he accepted Kohberger's terms. And I just don't see any other way of looking at it, because it sounds like that is exactly what happened.
Go ahead, Phil.
Well, let me just disagree a little bit. I think the prison system has a responsibility to protect him. I think that should be enforced, and it would be an American tragedy if he were killed in prison. I think that's not the way America works.
Howard.
I don't disagree with
that. He's my dear liberal friend.
I'm not calling for it.
Well, I certainly wouldn't be crying any tears. I would not cry one tear to hear. I actually would like to see him suffer for a little while before they take care of him. But I don't know. In this matter, I feel like those prisoners, those fellow prisoners, to him are allies. I'm willing to look the other way. He shouldn't continue breathing our air. I don't really care about the explanation at this point, Phil. I want him gone. I feel like the state fell down on the job. If prison justice has to do it,
nobody cried when Jeffrey Dahmer was killed in prison. I mean, things like that. But the state does have a legal obligation to at least do their best to protect those in their custody, such as prisoners. They don't always do such a good job at it, and these
why
things
are they letting men in women's prisons?
Yeah, well, you never know what's going to happen. But the thing that about his being in custody for life is, look, over time, whether it's a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, over time, the guard will get let down. He's going to become more in the rearview mirror and not so much of today's prisoner celebrity kind of thing. And so over time, he's going to be exposed to many different opportunities for things to happen, either at the hands of other third parties or at the hands of himself. And you just never know. He's not going to be well liked by other prisoners. He's going to be in that category of inmates that really do need to be looking over their shoulder for their own safety. And he better hope for his sake that he is in protective custody, and he better hope that it's sufficient protective custody and that there's no gaps in it, because he's going to be universally hated by the rank and file inmate, people that are in there for, let's just maybe theft offenses, property crimes, not necessarily, limited to just violent prisoners. He's going to be exposed potentially to all different manner of people that are just in there for short sentences, and some of them are in there for life. And some people in prison have nothing to lose either. And so he's got a lot of things that he needs to be concerned about. It's a long way from that selfie that we saw, where it's just disgusting to me, because it's right after apparently the murders. It looks like he's standing in front of a shower, or maybe he's just cleaned himself up, and he's giving this thumbs up like, hey, I'm very proud of myself. I'm proud of that I just achieved my mission. I think he was trying to duplicate, maybe a Ted Bundy or some other serial killer, and he's very proud of himself in that picture right there. But he's got a different road in front of him moving forward, Megyn. He's got a lot to be concerned about.
Here's a little bit more from this Larry Levine, who's got some interesting takes on it. All right, here is one, SOT 19.
I remember something you once told me, that almost everybody cries.
They do, because the whole realization has hit them. People lay awake and they can't sleep, and every little fucking noise and the pipes in the wall, everything freaks them out. And then, this is an old prison in Idaho. Maybe there's rats in the walls, and maybe he'll get a little pet or something. Then he's going to hear the other inmates are going to be assholes banging on the wall. They will. They're going to bang on the wall. They're going to fuck with him, and they're going to tell him they're going to kill him. It doesn't matter how tough you are. And he's got no hope. And that's what a lot of people, they live to see their families. They know they're all getting out. So a person serving a life sentence their first night in there, it just completely fucks with their head. Maybe he'll try to kill himself.
I'm starting to feel better. I don't, Howard. Wasn't he already asking when he got arrested for like vegan menu and like the proper cooking utensils that hadn't touched meat? It was kind of crazy when he first got arrested, if memory serves.
Yes, and he was also asking if he could have a coffee date with the officer who arrested him. I mean, he was sort of cut off from reality. He thought this was all somehow going to work out.
Yeah. And he's about to learn the hard way.
Will he be able to have people interview him in prison? Suppose Catherine Ramsden wanted to visit him. Would she be allowed? I'm not sure that's even allowed in maximum custody.
Well, here's what Brian Enton of News Nation tweeted out. He posted, Kohberger will likely have his own tablet in prison, like an iPad, with music, email, and movies in his prison cell. Also, he can buy his own TV to keep in his cell. This is why people favor the death penalty, because we don't want to see them, Phil, sitting there watching probably One Night in Idaho, reliving it for good time's sake in his case, as opposed to standing in front of the firing squad.
Yeah, he's going to be rewatching all his court appearances and reliving his glory days. But look, here's a question that I've got maybe for the rest of you, Megyn and the rest of the panel, and for those watching. Is there a possibility now that President Trump has weighed in on this case that maybe the federal government brings some charges? Because, it's possible. There's concurrent jurisdiction. There's no such thing as double jeopardy vis-a-vis the federal and the state system. And if the Justice Department were to try to pick up this case, the federal death penalty could potentially be on the table, and he could have a whole new set of problems to be dealing with. So, look, this sentencing hearing is over. This Idaho case is over, but this saga is not over. And I just wonder if there's not going to be some, thought given at the federal level to bring in some kind of federal charges, because in the federal system, the death penalty it's real, it applies, and the Justice Department knows how to use it.
Here was the president's tweet just, I think, 2 days ago. Bryan Kohberger, who was responsible in Idaho for the deaths of 4 wonderful young souls, has made a plea bargain deal in order to avoid the death penalty. These were vicious murders with so many questions left unanswered. While life imprisonment is tough, it's certainly better than receiving the death penalty. But before sentencing, I hope the judge makes Kohberger, at a minimum, explain why he did these horrible murders. There are no explanations. There is nothing. People were shocked that he was able to plea bargain, but the judge should make him explain what happened. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The judge pointing out today he didn't have that ability, but Matt, you pointed out last time we were together, the DA did. I'll give you the floor in 1 second. I want to say this. My information is that thanks to DOJ, the DOJ right now is severely undermanned. DOJ is not like USAID, where you cancel the grant and you cancel the person overseeing it and you're fine. When you fire something like 240 lawyers from DOJ, the cases they were on do not go away. They now get dumped on other lawyers who are at DOJ. So my info over there is that a lot of lawyers are really stretched thin. They need to hire good lawyers over there. Hello, my friends on screen left. Phil, I know you're busy with the new MK Media show, but you should do it. You too, Matt. You recently left the prosecutor's office anyway. I don't think they have the manpower to go after a case that's already wrapped up. But your thoughts on it, Matt?
Well, they could. They certainly could. We're talking about the resources of the federal government. The problem is, would they? And then what effect would that ultimately have? And Philip's right. I don't know if it's called dual jurisdiction. I don't know if there necessarily is a federal weigh into this. It wasn't on a military base. I don't know if there'd be any federal jurisdiction because it was a college campus. I don't know if they would necessarily have jurisdiction, but the problem there, Megyn, is we just saw the midnight pardons and commutations by Joe Biden, where I think they commuted 37 of 42 federal death penalty cases, I think was the number. The vast majority on his way out the door of federal death penalty sentences were commuted to life in prison. So even if we did get one federally, Megyn, you cover this, you cover national politics. That's 40 years is a long time for there to be a president, as we almost saw last time, that's hostile to the death penalty, hostile to life without parole, who would likely commute that long before it was carried out.
I'd like to correct your statement. The auto pen was hostile to the death penalty, and the auto pen decided to get rid of it in many cases.
Or whoever was turning it on, right.
I want to play the following because we did not.
He went on Amazon. He went on Amazon and to make purchases, and so I think there could be a federal hook here. And he left the state of Idaho in furtherance of his
he crossed state lines.
Desires to cover up
I think
the
you're
crimes.
looking at it in a too legalistic way. I think if the president believes a great number of the American people still want answers, I think he will somehow move things so that things will move forward in the courts. I think
Philip just hit the nail on the head. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you, Howard. Philip's absolutely right. He crossed state lines. That's the hook. They could do it if they want. That does give the feds jurisdiction if they wanted to pursue death. I don't know how the families would feel about going through that entire process, but they would be walking with the backstop. It's a very interesting idea.
Wow. Okay, so then we've plowed new ground here. I wanted to play this just because we listened to this whole thing together, and we heard from Maddie's family, we heard from Kaylee's family, we heard from Xana's family, but we heard nothing from Ethan Chapin's family, and there was a reason for that. His parents did cooperate with the One Night in Idaho documentary. His mother, who I mentioned earlier, Stacy, an incredible woman. I mean, I've never met her, but boy, I was very impressed by her. And here's what she said in episode 3 of that 4-episode series, SOT 11.
Sitting in a courtroom just doesn't feel right. Why would I go sit in a courtroom with that person?
Have you attended any of the hearings?
None. No, I will not. We won't attend any of the hearings. What's the purpose?
Definitely not the trial.
No. Nope. I don't have a need to go look him in the eyes, or I don't. It is what it is. We cannot change the outcome on this thing. We cannot bring it back.
Oh, God. She's certainly right about that. She's got a very strong head on her shoulders. Maddie's mom, Karen, is a real tearjerker in this series because she looks just like her daughter, first of all. And second of all, she talks about how she raised Maddie and how, when Maddie cried in the crib, she went and got her. Like she was always like sort of and I mean this sweetly, like the sucker of a mom. Like, I can't take it. I can't take her upset. Life's too short. I need to help her with her distress. And by all accounts, Maddie turned out amazingly and turned into just an absolutely wonderful young woman. And so you can see this mother's just acute pain talking about getting the news and dealing with the news. And here's just a bit of her talking about that yellow sweatshirt that's in that photo of the 6 of them, the very photo that the sentencing proceeding today ended on. And the photo we've come to know so well that really encapsulates their friendship and the love and the vibrance. And here's Maddie's mom, Karen, talking about it. SOT 12.
We didn't honestly get a lot back. Just to be...
You didn't want it back, or you just...
wasn't able to come back. So the stuff that was able to come back, I went through and some of this is silly, some of this is very sentimental. Like, I still have the yellow sweater that she was wearing that day. The sleeves are still rolled up. So I found this sweatshirt when we went down. It was the first family weekend. And Maddie really wanted this sweatshirt. And it wasn't in her size. We couldn't find it. And I found it in a total different place. And when I found it, I was like, Scott, look, we found the sweater. And then I'm on video with her, and she's cutting it. I'm like, we were on FaceTime. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, this is how everything is worn, Mom. I'm like, okay, I gotta get used to this. I gotta let it be. But yes, super glad we got that back.
Oh my God, guys, you look at it. There's this sweatshirt with no girl in it, and no girl will ever be in it named Kaylee Goncalves because of what that monster did. Those moments really bring it back to what this case is all about. Those 4 wonderful lives lost for no reason. I don't know. My own take away on this story and this crime is so basic, but it's hug your kids, hug your loved ones. Remember that no tomorrow's promised. Don't assume you have the time. You might not. You have to tell everybody you love that you love them. You have to tell the friends that you have that you value them. You have to go outside and look at the sky or look at the ocean and think, I'm here on borrowed time. I'm a renter, not an owner. I have to treat the things around me and the people around me respectfully like a renter should. And make sure that you're connected, that you're not spending too much time working and not enough time loving and having experiences with those who mean something to you. It's the only comfort we have when something horrific happens, and the only comfort those parents have who were close to their kids by all accounts. I mean, especially in the case of the Chapins and Maddie and Kaylee. I don't know Xana's family as well, but my God, what a day. You guys I value you truly and sincerely. All 3 of you have helped us get through this case, and especially you, Howard. Thank you for everything. And we'll continue it on with many other cases to come. Thanks, guys, for being here today.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Megyn.
All the best, guys. Wow. And thanks to all of you for listening. This is an emotional one. I wonder how you're feeling. I'd love to know how you're feeling, actually. It helps me sometimes to read the emails. And I'm kind of like emotional. It's my son's 12th birthday, and they're growing up too fast and they're moving on, to new stages of life where they're a little less dependent on you. And that's a beautiful thing. And it's a necessary thing. But man, they're such perspective setters. They're what matters. That is, in the end, all that matters, and I love my job. As you guys know, I love doing the news, but my God, your family, they're everything. That's everything. So hug your loved ones, hug them dearly and tightly today. Happy birthday, Thatcher. And we'll all get together tomorrow on a less heavy news day, though things are really breaking today on the Tulsi Gabbard documents. We'll have that covered for you with the fellas from Ruthless, and we'll have some laughs. See you then.